considerin natin si Victor Lero na isa rin sa magaling na point guard dito sa NBA. I'm already prepared para sa matchup namin. Mabilis din siya eh. So, kailangan samahan ko lang yung bilis na saka yung intensity.
Experience-wise, parehas lang. Handling the ball at saka leadership. So, siguro medyo doon kami ano ng konti. Kasi mo lang siguro yung mas may effort saka mas masipag yung medyo makaka-dominate ng game.
Yung advantage sa kanya yung experience ko sa basketball. Siguro doon ka lang sa dadalhin.
Papalitan lang siguro ng defense yun ang mangyayari. So, ang advantage na ni General Calder sa atin, home court na to. And siyempre, mas malakas yung confidence nila.
Malaki siya sa akin. So, isa bandis ka lang, unahan mo siya ng position dahil malaki siya, lalo na yung sa rebound. Unahan ko siya ng ibabak sa office dahil mas mataas sa akin.
Nakapokus ako sa ilalim. So dahil mas malaki ako sa kanya, so pahirap ang depensa ni Ting dyan para matigil niya ako. So doon ko siya lalabanan sa ilalim. At sa kanya naman sa labas.
Talk about big games. This is one for the books, and the San Juan Knights and the Negros Slashers and the fans here in Bacolod City both know how important this game is. San Juan shooting for the top spot overall in the NBA FedEx Crossover Cup, however remote be, and the Negros Slashers aiming for the top spot in the South when we go over to the inter-conference phase in a few weeks' time. And this may be the last time they will face each other unless they both make it to the national playoffs at the end of the year. Mabuhay Pilipinas and welcome to Bacolod City, the City of Smiles, home of the Negros Slashers. They will be hosting the San Juan Knights at the bookend of our doubleheader today on the NBA. I'm Bill Velasco, working the South for the first time. Working with me for the first time, my pleasure to have on board Mark Molina. Welcome to the South, Mark.
Ibang klase ang crowd dito sa Bacolod. Talagang very pumped up. I've never seen anything like this.
All right, and going into this game, there's a lot of intensity at stake. Let's check out the team standings to point out to you exactly where everybody is at. The San Juan Knights are just a shade behind the Laguna Lakers, and the little numbers you see there is the quotient.
That's right. San Juan has to win by 29 points today. Very, very hard. Almost impossible because Negros is playing.
Okay.
Shooting for the 5th straight win. Dito pa sa bahay nila sa Bacolod. Bihirang-bihira na lang tao dito. So, Laguna most likely will get that top spot. San Juan number 2, Pasig Rizal number 3, and then that all-important game on Wednesday, Pampanga and Davao for the 4th slot in our FedEx Final Four.
And how important is the top spot? Well, simply put, in the knockout game and in the finals, you will get most of your games at home. Meanwhile, we broke up the team standings into North and South to show you where everybody will be come the next phase of this season, which will unfurl for you sometime immediately after the finals, practically a week or two break.
That's right, Bill. Dito makikita natin ang Negros nasa second position. So if they win today and Davao loses on Wednesday, Negros and Davao will be tied for the top spot dito sa South Division. At may jacking for position tayo dito.
At mahalaga talaga makapag-ipon na kayo ng panalo habang maaga pa dahil double round robin na naman yung susunod na phase natin.
Saka yung next phase natin, will be South and South ang maglalaban.
And North and North din.
Kung medyo nakakalamang ka sa umpisa, malaking advantage.
Alright, now in the previous meeting, the San Juan Knights prevailed at home over the Negros Slashers. Brunel Balingit had a tremendous game there, had a double-double in points and rebounds, and he will continue to be a big problem for the Slashers dahil talagang sa sobrang laki ng frontline ng San Juan.
Yan ang kailangan mahirapang mag-match up ang Negros dito kay Brunel Balingit, kay Mansi Rodriguez. They don't have a legitimate center.
Okay.
Sometimes si John Ferriol playing out of position, nagse-center yan. Pero mahihirapan dito si John Ferriol to play against the likes of Brunel Balingit. So they need Alvin Teng and sila Rainer Hugnatan, sila Batog to to step up in this game.
All right, Negros shot only 34% versus San Juan's 45% in that game. So it just really shows how hard it is, one, to get the ball inside, and two, when you're not playing at home, your outside shot does not fall as well.
Tama yun, but during the start of the game, dinominate ng Negros yung game na yun San Juan. But fourth quarter time, 33-18 na score natin ng fourth quarter, giving San Juan the victory. Ngayon, if that will happen again today, I don't think San Juan can do that here in Negros.
Oh no, that's going to be very hard.
Slashers by 15 points in the fourth quarter. That's going to be very hard.
Talking about the San Juan Knights, they're an excellent team at home. They're a good team on the road, but how important will it be for them to get a big start today?
Ay, importante. They have to take away the crowd. Itong Negros hindi masyadong maganda ang road record, pero home record, napakaganda simply because of this fantastic crowd here in Bacolod. If San Juan does not take away this crowd, may hirapan sila. So very, very important for San Juan to have a quick start para medyo matahimik yung crowd dito sa Bacolod.
And that may impact the choice of starters for Coach Philip Cesar. And of course, completing our team here in the South, in just a short while, you're going to hear from Patricia Hesbin on the side of the Negros Slashers. But first is Bobby Yan working the San Juan Knights. Bobby?
Yes, Bill, the main motivation here for the San Juan Knights obviously is the number one spot. But as you mentioned, the magic number is 29 points, winning margin for them to claim that. And we all know that's a hard task here against the Negros Slashers here in Bacolod. Pero Bill, Mark, tsaka mga kababayan, lalo na yung mga kababayan natin dito sa San Juan, yung problema talaga ni Coach Philip Cesar is composed basketball. And for the San Juan Knights to play their best basketball right now. According to Coach Philip Cesar, in the last 4 games, Negros is the better team. Therefore, in the last 4 games, San Juan is 3-1 in the last 4 games. Hindi lang yun. San Juan lost a 17-point lead against Cebu. They lost an 18-point lead against Iloilo. That's a total of 35 points, which they lost because they lack composure. So, kay Coach Philip Cesar, it's composed basketball right now, especially against the trap of the Negros Slashers. So, Bill, Mark, it's not about being number one today for the San Juan Knights. It's about being the better team today as we approach the playoffs. Now, let's turn it over to Patricia.
Yes, thanks, Bob. This will be the last home game for the Negros, but still, they have to win this game for the possibility to be at the first or second in the team standings for the South that will be carried over for the next conference. San Juan defeated Negros by 6 points during their last game. Negros shooting was quite bad, even their free throws that caused their loss with the San Juan. Coach Robert used to do today is improve their field goals. Very important is their rebounding, their end game check, which is to start strong and finish strong, sustain their intensity till the end of the game. These are Coach Robert's adjustments that we will check on during the game. Back to you, Mark and Bill.
Okay, thank you very much, Patricia and Bobby. And for the part of Negros, they want to start big and they want to dominate the boards in their winning streak so far. That has been their trademark. They call it Negros basketball, running and gunning from the outside.
Correct, yan ang gagawin ng Slashers ngayon, especially pag ginamit nila si John Ferriols at center. Yung quickness sila, yung fast break opportunities, dyan nabubuhay ang Slashers. Yan naman ang ayaw ng San Juan. San Juan would rather slow this game, get the ball to Balingit, create some place for Calagio and Vicolero and the other shooters. Kaya sino makakontrol ng tempo nito in the early goings will have an advantage in this game.
At alam mo talagang napakaraming magagandang match-ups dito sa game na ito. We just featured 3 of them in our primer. You have Maui Velar and of course Chito Vicolera and so on and so forth. But still, look at the 3 for the win that they want to push today. Calagio, Ribes, and Balingit. Ribes will be seeing action for the first time since that devastating fall we had at the end of the game against Iloilo 2 games back. Velar, Cardel, and Ferriols, of course, always big numbers for the Slasher.
Very critical yan. Halos pareho ang numbers itong trios natin dito. And in a professional league like the NBA who does not allow the zone defense, importante talaga mga matchups dito. So yan, yung tatlo nga napapanoodin natin. Calagio versus Cardel, Ribes, Velar, Balingit, and Ferriols.
Alright, so now let's listen to Kerr Cruz call out today's starters. Kerr?
Randy Rodriguez. At small forward number 18, Randy Alcantara. At big guard number 9, Chris Calagio. And player number 62, Chito Victorino. San Juan Knights head coach Philip Cesar, assistant coaches Adam Romeo and Harry Cayetano. Number 22, John Ferry.
adjustment made by Robert Season of Negros is to start Alvin Teng at center, and John Ferriol slips back to his traditional role of power forward.
We have to closely watch this matchup dito sa inside game natin, Rodriguez and Balingit. Although mas malaki sila pareho kay Alvin Teng at kay John Ferriols, in terms of skill level and production, hindi pa patalo si John Ferriols at si Alvin Teng sa dalawang to.
Absolutely. So often Rodriguez trying to steal the jump, but it will go to the Negros Slashers, and the Slashers like having the ball at the start of the game. Talking about the matchups here, it's going to be very hard for Negros to pound the ball inside, so their outside shooting becomes even more critical.
Correct, dyan na kailangan sila John Cardel at si Romy De La Rosa, and later si Ruben De La Rosa to produce for them.
Dang, hindi nasa labas si Rodriguez, and it looks like Ferriols is being guarded by Balingit. Cardel could have been traveling, or was there a push? May foul. The referees, by the way, are Rafi Botanico, Len Macalalad, and Nats Fabres, wearing 19, 8, and 20 respectively. Mark?
Dito mo makikita sa first 5 matchups natin dito sa loob, mas malaki lahat ng players dito ng San Juan Knights, with the exception of Calagio and Romy De La Rosa. Yan, pwede nila exploit yan. Pwede din nila post up si Romy De La Rosa dito kay Chris Calagio. Good point. Also to get him also into early foul trouble.
Pero kung titignan mo rin yung bench, wala kayo tatapos sa magkabilang panig. De La Rosa bombing away, he cans it!
Importante yan. Outside shooting and transition points will decide this game for the Negros Slashers.
And those are two numbers we'll keep an eye on. You see Balingit working hard to get position in the low post. Victorero never takes a bad shot. Strip.
Very important yung matchup dito rin. Chito Victorero versus Maui Rolando.
Calagio.
Yes, Mark. Kanina sinabi ko kung sino makakontrol itong ball game sa umpisa, will have an advantage. So, yung importance ng dalawang point guards natin will be stressed here.
Maui Rolando, by the way, was not feeling too well yesterday. And he's also been bothered by aching knees the past few weeks.
But even if you're not 100%, if you see a crowd like this,
Totoo yan.
hindi ka pwedeng hindi maglaro.
You can't let them down. Foul is on Chico Victorero's first. Cantel goes to the line. Less than 2 minutes gone by in the first period. Cantel, nothing but net. You know, the Slashers were here extra early today because they know how big this game is.
Correct, they're shooting for their 5th straight win here in Bacolod and 5th straight win under Coach Robert Season.
That's true.
Maganda ang umpisa ng Slashers because early pa lang si Cardel, 2 fouls na nakukuha ni Cardel. So he's very aggressive attacking the basket.
4-0. Calagio doesn't really start strong, but pulls it on once he gets going. Perez with the rebound. Long lead pass. Cardel ahead of the puck. No!
Sayang yun. Pero yun, that's what Negros has to do if they want to win this game. Talagang they have to outrun this San Juan Knights team.
May sumabit kay Chito Victorero. It's on Ferriol. Yung mayata ni Big John ang sumabit kay Victorero.
So yan, babantayan din natin yung foul situation dito ni John Ferriols because he'll be going up against a lot of big men dito. Pero si Ferriols, nagalaw yan halos 40 minutes a game.
Victorero, by the way, currently the league leader in assists. Balingit called for traveling. And that is what Alvin Teng was saying. Kailangan maunahan niya sa pwesto para lumayo na konti si Bunel. Napilitan mag-dribble.
Tsaka yung focus na yan, pag si Alvin Teng, na-stop niya si Bunel Balingit ng one-on-one, if they don't have to double team Bunel Balingit, hindi maliligo sila kalagi sa labas.
It's an excellent observation. Ferriol working against a 6'9" Balingit, glaring at him. Drop step. Left-handed jumper. Yes!
Diyan mo makikita kung gaano ka-complete player to si John Ferriols. Nakita niya, big man on him. Nilabas niya, took him off the dribble instead of his usual inside moves inside the paint.
6-0. Balingit offensive foul. Tried to put up a screen, but he had his elbow stuck out.
Medyo frustration creeping in also already now on Bunel Balingit. Patawagan siya traveling. Nashutan pa siya ni John Ferriols and then offensive foul. So 3 straight plays, medyo masama pinapakita ni Man Mountain, Bunel Balingit.
At alam mo, naiipon niya sa utak ng player.
Correct. Alamang lang ng San Juan Knights, meron pa silang reviews sa sa bench nila. Kaya malalim ang inside game ng San Juan Knights.
And let's not forget, Cal Ferreira had a breakout game against Surigao. Here by the Knights, Alcantara and Calagua, nobody home. They get on the board with 9.5 to go. 4-point lead for Negros.
First 2 points yun ng San Juan Knights.
Now you know why coaches lose a lot of weight when they come to the NBA.
Talagang hindi lang yung dito sa game. Every day of every minute, every hour of their lives. Iniisip nila yan. Yung game nila natin ngayon.
Not like announcers who put on a lot of weight. Samantala, isang fast break hatid sa inyo ng FedEx. We live to deliver. Randy Alcantara getting the first points for San Juan. Abdel spots.
Ang napansin ko dito sa Negros Slashers since Robert season took over, gumanda ang offensive execution nila. Mas maganda ang set play sila, mas maganda ang takbo nila on the half court set. Yung transition offense ng Negros has always been there.
Oh yes. Alago gets the ball back, has his pocket picked again. One of the league leaders in steals. De La Rosa lines up a triple. Bang!
2 out of 2 from 3-point range from Romy De La Rosa. Mabigat yun, nag-out of the Slashers.
Ref saying he had a foot on the line, so it's just a 2-pointer, but the impact is just the same. 8-2. Foul is on Alvin Teng.
This time they will call the foul on Alvin Teng. Tama yung ginagawa ni Alvin Teng. He's trying to push Bunel Balingit outside. Kaya pag nakapwesto ito sa sweet spot na down low, halos 2 points na kay Bunel Balingit.
Anything from 10 feet in. Rodriguez. Go downstairs to Balingit. Just simply backing it too deep. Good travel. And the crowd loves it, and if we can hear him, let's get a report from Bobby Yan.
Let's build dito para sa San Juan. They have to get Bunel Balingit involved early here in offense. Now in the past games, pagdating ng endgame, wala si Balingit on the floor. It may be 3 reasons. Isa, naging liability siya sa depensa, especially against quicker squads, not just Negros squad. Or napapagod siya, or napafoul trouble siya. So right now sa first quarter, kailangan nila pigain. Baga, itong opensa ni Balingit here in the first half. Bill, Mark, back to you.
You know, that is very critical to San Juan, how much they can get out of Balingit early.
But ang problem ng San Juan ngayon, Bill, yung spacing nila hindi masyadong maganda eh.
Okay.
Nag-double si John Edwards kay Bunel Balingit. Tapos yung Muscle Rodriguez, they're leaving him outside. At pinasok ni Balingit, patitirahin ng Negros yun eh. So they have to have Umasi Rodriguez probably on the baseline, and then yung mga shooters sila papatayin na sa labas para mahirapan mag-double si Bunel.
Kailangan ibuka pa nila ng konti.
Oo, hindi masyado maganda ang spacing nila.
San Juan already in the penalty with 5 fouls. We still have 8 minutes and 6 seconds to go in the quarter. Field goal shooting San Juan, 1 out of 2. Negros 3 out of 5. Cartel back at the free throw line. You see Philip Cesar giving some pointers to Alcantara.
Again, John Cardell showing his aggressiveness. Attempting his 4th free throw here already. 4 minutes pa lang ang gone by here in the first quarter.
Alcantara already has 3 fouls. So Phil Newton comes in to replace him. Newton's another player for San Juan who has not yet found his niche, so to speak.
Correct. So, magandang defensive player to si Newton eh. So, siya ang kalagay na dito kay John Cardell ngayon.
Alam mo, maganda yung ginawa ni Newton kasi kanina, yung warm-up, they were taking a lot of 3-point shots and they were short. So ngayon, nilapit na ng konti, swak yung tira na.
Tama, tsaka magandang execution ng San Juan Knights that time. Meron silang movement, people and ball movement, kaya nalipit si Newton.
Meanwhile, the Slashers throwing the ball away, Balingit in the paint, taking his time, and he gets fouled. Oh, he's traveling.
Tatlo na yun, tatlong traveling. With less than 5 minutes gone by, tatlong traveling na tinatawag dito kaya Bunel Balingit.
At kailangan siguro dyan, nakaposte siya na maayos para pipihit na dyan.
Tama yun. Pero maganda rin kasi ang pinapakita ang defense ni Alvin Teng dito kay Bunel.
Valero, slow down the line. Valero off a double screen, open for the jumper.
That's what I'm saying. Yung offensive execution ng Slashers improved a lot with Robert Season on the helm.
And the confidence.
Correct.
12-4. San Juan in the peculiar position of being behind early in the game. Newton trying to create. Got pushed by De La Rosa.
So si Newton trying to provide instant offense off the bench here for the San Juan Knights. Sabi mo nga, Phil, si Chris Calagio, very slow starter. Kaya mo na balingin out of his game. So they're looking for points from other people.
At siguro kailangan yung San Juan is somebody who can create his own shot.
Correct.
Malingit. Ayan, may foul.
Instant recall the foul. John Carrios. Second foul on John Carrios. That can be big in this game.
Negros Slashers. On a timeout, they lead by 8 under 7 minutes to play. Both teams in the penalty. This is NBA basketball. Short on the 40. A foul against Capdell. Pass was off.
Magiging very predictable na itong offense ng San Juan Knights eh. They have to do something different. Maybe mag-decay muna dito sa Bel Balingit. Give some screens to Calagio or Newton who made the basket earlier.
Negros settling down just a bit, and let's find out more from Patricia Heslett.
Yes, Bill, as you've said earlier, that the first adjustment of Coach Robert is to put Alvin Teng in the first 5 and in the center and put Negros in the number 4 position, power forward, which is very used to. This is how he will start his motto, start strong and finish strong for today. Back to you, Vilmar.
Thank you very much, Patricia. And now Leo Batog can come in. And you know, this is another of Robert Caesar's adjustments. Leo Batog is now given offensive opportunities na wala dati.
Tama yun eh. Kailangan nila puntahan talaga si Leo Batog because ito si Alvin Teng hindi naman to very polished offensively. So when John Ferriol sits down, they have to get the ball inside to Leo Batog so that they can have an inside presence.
Oh, yes. One of the most fearless players in the NBA gets a three-point play. And look at the balance of scoring now for Negros. And where is the scoring of San Juan?
Yun nga nangyari ito, very predictable na ang offense nila. Yung isang point pa nila kanina, fast break situation lang. So, walang movement ng offense ng San Juan eh. Walang nangyayari. And Calagio has not attempted in this game.
A very pointed observation. Chito Victorero always the safety valve of San Juan.
Oo, yan si Chito Victorero, last option lagi yan sa offense ng San Juan. But, when given the opportunity, he can deliver.
Shot selection always impeccable. Negros now working the half-court set. Foul on Victorero. Telling Batog pick him up.
The Negros must take advantage now dito sa with over 5 minutes left. Itong San Juan Knights in penalty already.
Alam mo, hirap na hirap si Victorero, si Calagio na makakalas dahil ang laki ng bumabantay sa kanya, si De La Rosa.
Tama yun,
Away nothing in quickness.
Tsaka talagang one of the best defensive forwards yan dito si Romy De La Rosa. That's why Chris Calagio will have a hard time creating his own shots. So his teammates must create shots for him by giving him screens and getting him the ball at the right positions.
All of Jonadel Cardel's points have come from the free throw line.
Yan ang aggressiveness na pinapakita sa atin ni Jonadel Carmel dito sa laro natin ngayon.
He has 6 points. San Juan has only scored 4 points in the last 4 minutes. Not a healthy sign. 17-6 the score. Victorero penetrating Omazi.
Good job that time by Victorero. Yan ang kayang-kayang gawin ni Chito Victorero. Create baskets for his teammates. That time, good job shot by Juan Rodriguez.
Now they're swinging the focus of the offense away from Balingit. They do have a lot of options when you think about it.
Marami talaga pero talagang San Juan wants to start the ball games going to be ng Balingit.
Abdel bombs away. He has 9 points. The Slashers have a 12-point bubble.
Pinansin mo kasi na puro foul shot lang ang
Classic ba tayo? Again, Balingit denied the ball. Victorero has to put it up. He's fouled by Batog. Victorero, very smart player.
Correct, and he's the one player keeping San Juan in this game. Hindi lang daw si dapat ang lamang dito ng
pa. That was a 3-point shot brought to you by Orlando Sandals. May kapal na urig. Ibay ng urig. And Aldrich Reyes and Sid White come in for Negros. 4:40 to go.
Both teams really have very, very deep benches. Ito, Sid White at Aldrich Reyes. Once upon a time, started with different teams in the NBA.
Tama. Aldrich Reyes was a starter for the Marlins and Sid White for the Nueva Ecija Patriots. Judge Primero. Of the smashes, Victor Leno with an offensive board. Dumps it over to Rodriguez. Somebody tapped it off. Alvin
Last
Tang.
touch on Alvin Tang. So, ball possession will remain with San Juan Knights.
Luton replaced by Capobles. And I think Capobles is one player who Negros may have trouble matching up against. He's a big guy who has a lot of quickness.
Tama, he can hit the outside shot also.
Kita mo, he gets scoring right away.
Nakaw ang tawag dun sa
larong kalye.
Nakaw yun. So finally, Calagio getting an attempt here in the first quarter.
We are at a jam-packed University of St. Masal gym. 20-11 is the count. Matrov taking a good first step. And pulling it down. But he gives up a foul. There's the foul on Victorero.
Kasi mo ginagawa ng big men dito ng Negros Slashers. Instead of posting up, they're taking their men off the dribble because they feel they have a quickness advantage against Rodriguez or Balingit.
Alright, Alvin Tang committed his second foul, and you can see Robert Sison calling Ega Ignacio off the bench. They need one more big body on the floor. Alvin Tang may be getting tired, and wouldn't you?
Especially playing against Balingit, mahirap pa talaga.
And how do you practice pushing somebody that big around?
Siguro dapat may magre-wrestling, nagsusumo wrestling sila sa practice.
Pagbubuhuli mo yung dalawang kakampi mo tapos tutulak mo sila.
It's very hard because you don't play against this kind of a player every day in practice. Walang ganyang klaseng player dito sa NBA kundi siya lang eh. So when you get to meet him and you don't see him every twice a year lang halos you don't really prepare for it dahil minsan lang naman kayo makita. So biglang magkita kayo ngayon, may laking problema talaga for Alvinson.
2013 and San Juan slowly inching in. Reaching foul on Chito Victorero. Ticky-tack foul, that's his third. Kalani Ferreira will make his entry. Came back from a minor injury.
So ito na talagang 9 fouls na dito ang mga San Juan Knights sa first quarter natin. Ang daming fouls sa tinitingnan dito ng Negros Slashers.
Reyes at the line. As we said, San Juan has been in the penalty for such a long time already.
Let's also see now if Ferreira can quarterback the team as effectively as Victorero during the first 8 minutes of our game.
Iba naman to si Ferreira. He's very athletic, very explosive, and very daring. 2 for 2 from Reyes. And I think San Juan may be a little surprised at the aggressiveness of Negros.
That's, I believe, primarily because they're playing in front of their home crowd. Iba-iba talaga ang start ng Negros if they're here in Bacolod.
Calagio, guarded now by his nemesis Cardel. There was a switch. Good block by Ignacio Calagio, and he traveled. At San Juan may have a point here.
Correct, because it was deflected nasa ako si Chris Calagio.
Nabitawan naman niya.
So legal yun, pwedeng tulungan ni Calagio and then take another shot. Kaya tagay dito si Coach Philip Cesar.
22-14 and Chito Victorero on the bench is really hot under the collar. And why not? He's got 3 fouls already. Philip Cesar also livid about that call.
So they change, I think the ball will remain with San Juan now.
All right. And they only have 1 second on their shot clock. 30-second timeout is brought to you by Revicon. Buhay ang dugo. Buhay ang lakas. By the way, we'd also like to thank Nature Spring Mineral Water, Kimas Pension, Bacolod Executive Inn, and Royal Amory Hotel.
Hindi. Unang ikaw maglabas. Dito ka. Umansi.
lumabas. Ayan ha, oh. Paano, dito si Bunel. Dito si Bunel. Takbo kayo lahat doon. Takbo kayo lahat ha. Tapos Juan. Agis mo ng lobo kayo Bunel. Bunel ha. Huwag mo itutulak. Unin mo lang sa taas. Follow up na kagad. 1 second. Okay, let's go.
Okay, so they want to get the ball inside to Bonel Balingit.
Itong dinisign na play ni Coach Philip Cesar, if you watch the NBA games, familiar play ito ng Los Angeles Lakers, si Shaquille O'Neal. Pag meron silang inbound play sa baseline. Aalis yung tatlo dyan and then they will leave Bonel by himself. Kaso not-affect. Nabasa ni Edo Ignacio yun.
Alam nila kailangan malapitan o talagang malayuan ang tira. White tried to set a screen for Reyes. Goes underneath. Lost the ball. Reyes playing a little out of control.
Yan ang mahirap talaga, isa sa pinakamahirap na position sa backup point guard in any team dahil hindi ka pa masyadong pinagpapawisan eh. You're tasked with handling the team.
Tapos pag lumit ang lamang nyo, ikaw masisisi.
Ikaw may kasalanan.
They scrambled the ball. Jump between Reyes and Capobres and Ferreria lifting.
This could be a bad sign for San Juan with Victorero having 3 fouls. Pereira medyo may iniinda siya ngayon.
Nagagaling lang sa injury. Privilege arrow points to San Juan, so they will keep, but only that much, that few seconds remaining left on the shot clock. And Elijah's still a bit cold, hasn't really gotten that many touches. Capobres opens himself up. Omanzi with a follow-up.
And for the first time in this game, the San Juan Knights showing the rebounding dominance. Yan ang kailangan ni pagpatuloy ng San Juan if they want to win this game.
The lead is down to 7. 2 minutes, 35 seconds to go in the period. But on. Drop step, kind of offensive foul. Ginamitan niya ng balikat.
Great defense that time by Omanzi Rodriguez. When they get inside the paint, may hirapan to si Leo Batog against Omanzi Rodriguez.
Rodriguez, of course, the league's leading shot blocker. Knights call a timeout. It will not count. The clock had expired. Good defensive stop by San Juan.
Malaki ang binaba ng execution ng slashers eh. Nung lumabas si Maui Velar tsaka si John Caldwell.
Foul is called on Ruben De La Rosa. May iniwan siyang
Nakikita natin dito si Bonel Balingit, Omanzi Rodriguez and Chris Calagio. Hindi pa sila pinapalitan pero very minimal pa ang production nila this first quarter. Especially Bonel Balingit who has not yet scored.
straight and true. Calagio with 4 points. Balingit will finally rest and Wilmer Banyares replaces him.
So Omanzi Rodriguez now will play the center position here for the San Juan Knights.
So a lot of talent on that San Juan bench. Calagio makes his second charity. Rafi Rivas, Bruce Dasha, of course, missing action today. And Maki De Hoya is in street clothes, won't be playing.
Malaking bagay yan eh. Dahil fighter yan si Maki De Hoya.
Kung depensa lang pag-uusapan, talagang masigat ang kalaban. Holding foul on Banyares. 2 free throws for Ruben De La Rosa.
Good idea that time by Ruben De La Rosa in penalty itong San Juan Knights. So I will take it strong to the hook. So ibigyan siya dito na 2 free throws.
Free throws, which used to be an adventure.
That's right. Actually, both teams hindi masyadong magandang free throw percentage ito. In fact, yung last game, Negros missed 22 foul shots in their game against San Juan. Yun ang one of the reasons also why they lost that game.
Rivas checks into the game for the first time. Work up a sweat before the second period.
Ito ang halos puro second stringers na nasa loob natin dito. The only starter remaining is Chris Calagio. for both teams. If you look at the lineup of the Slashers now, even though they don't have a legitimate center like Jack Panawan before and Dorian Peña, mas lumalim naman ang bench nila eh. Nagkaroon sila ng Ruben De La Rosa, Sid White, Aldrich Reyes, which they did not have in the past.
At saka, yung mga player nila ngayon, multiple positions.
Correct. Halos wala nang position yun eh. Dahil very versatile itong lineup ng Negros Slashers.
Like the old Boston Celtics. Let's put 5 guys on the floor. Lani Ferreira gets his first points of the game, and the lead of Negros is down to 5. So San Juan has made some headway here at the end of the first period. Reyes drops it off, back off. Too strong off the glass. Ang problema pag sobrang lakas tumalon.
Kung mapapansin mo, masyadong malayo ang point of attack dito ni Aldrich Reyes eh. Kailangan ilapit pa na yung bola para maging threat siya offensively.
Matthew Rivas picks up a foul, and that is number 3 on Patol.
So this could be a problem here for the Slashers. 3 fouls on Patol, 2 fouls on Teng, 2 fouls on John Terrols.
Now Dennis Madrid and Raider Husnatan will come in. Madrid coming over from the Batangas Blades.
Si Rivas for a big man, magandang touch ito from the free throw line.
Pansin na medyo napreno yung atake ngayon ng Negros.
Oo, susubukan naman nila ngayon si Dennis Madrid. Napaka-deep talaga ng point guard lineup itong Negros Slashers. Ito si Dennis Madrid, third point guard na nila to.
Banyares pick niya pa foul kung Hugnatan.
This has been a very long first quarter, Bill.
I noticed.
A lot of foul shots from both teams.
Madrid trying to protect the ball from Ferreira. Slip through the hands of Ignacio. Rafi Rivas left the ball behind. Capobres clearing some room. 3 seconds called on San Juan.
Masyadong mabilis si Rafi Rivas that time. Naiwanan pa niya yung ganado eh.
Well, it's tough for a player that young to sit out a game, and you can see under his jersey, he's actually got part of his ribs still taped up. The hard fall when he won the game for San Juan against Iloilo. Traveling's call on Sid White.
So despite the good start of the Slashers, with 30 seconds left, 4 points lang ang lamang dito ng Negros Slashers. It's primarily because they haven't had good bench play from their bench players.
So, mag-iiba ang timpla ng team na.
Oo, nakawala si John Period sa kasi mawawala John Cardell. Nagbago ang galaw ng Slashers.
Herrera, Capobres, Banyares, not really an outside shooter, stumbles. Madrid, ahead to De La Rosa, too deep. Pero may foul, mukhang nabraso siya ni Capobres.
Foul number 20, Natalie Capobres.
So free throw shooting time again, this time for Ruben De La Rosa. Sawa ka na sa free throw. Ang dami na ba tayong how many foul shots have we taken?
Well, we've got 21 fouls already in the first quarter.
Grabe.
But we expected it to be physical.
That's right.
But a lot of the fouls are on the outside and driving players.
Tsaka may mga reaching in fouls. Especially kanina si Chito Vicorero, dalawang halos useless fouls yung pinumit kanina. It's a good thing both teams have deep lineups.
Well, free throws made. Calago! Big three-pointer! And so, that shot almost knocked the crowd off their seats. Just a 3-point lead now for Negros in a high-scoring first period. 26-23. And look at the matchups. Cardell, Victorero will be back for more at the NBA. Going out. Libre si Rivas. De La Rosa. Wiped away by Capobles.
Ito si Coach Robert Season sensing danger, putting in John Ferriols together with John Cabell now and Romy De La Rosa, yung 3 big guns niya.
Dasha replaces Calagio. Dasha is another surprise package of San Juan.
Tama, he can provide instant offense also off the bench.
This guy floats in the air. He doesn't fly, he floats.
Magandang backup yan kay Chris Calagio for the San Juan Knights.
Arias attacking Rivas now, drops, fakes him off, uses the left hand. Has so many moves.
Binaril pa na si Rafi Rivas.
Rivas binangga naman ni Reynel Hugnatan. Parang blocker itong si Hugnatan kanina.
But going to John Ferriols, you have to admire the footwork being shown here by John Ferriols. Talagang kompletong player to si John Ferriols.
At nagpabigat pa siya because he started the season playing center.
That's right, but despite gaining that weight, hindi bumagal to si John Ferriols. Right, explosiveness niya is still the same.
Oh yes. Green has a whistle. First free throw. Silva on the bench with Ben De La Rosa and Alvin Taylor. 5 points now for Rafi Rivas. And the free throws were one of the big factors in the first quarter, but also the rebounding.
Very high field goal percentage for both teams. That was a free throw percentage sa mga slashers, 14 out of 14 on first quarter. Pangalawa na yan ni Romy De La Rosa.
And he bails them out, gives them a 4-point lead. Carrera spins, called the travel.
And I think that's the fourth traveling violation called on the slashers already, on the San Juan Knights.
There's a 3-point shot brought to you by Islanders. Santos may kapal na urig, tibay ng urig. De La Rosa at the opposite wing. Drops it over. Felios likes this shot. Too long.
Great execution that time by Negros. Hindi lang nahulog yung tira ni John Ferriols.
Capobles bringing up the ball. Foul on the Rivas. Hugnatan tries to deny Rivas position.
Third foul on Reynel Hugnatan. So the big men of the Negros Slashers getting into early foul trouble here.
Alam mo, mahaba pa yung laro natin. Mark, 9:50 to go pa in the second quarter.
Yan ang tanong, if the San Juan Knights can stick with the Negros Slashers, baka pagdating na fourth quarter, maubos na itong mga big man ng Slashers.
Capobles keeps it in play. Found himself open.
Simple yung low post move ni Danny Capobles, but very, very effective.
In a minute, Randy Alcantara will check back in for San Juan. Katulakan off the screen. Second foul on Capobles.
Itong ginagawang play ni Coach Robert Season for John Cardel and Ruben De La Rosa, very, very similar to sa ginagawa ng Larry Bird sa Indiana Pacers. Reggie Miller and Jalen Rose naman ang ginagamit niya.
So you guys never sleep.
Especially nowadays.
Playoffs, you know. 11 points for Jonathan Cardell. Madrid reaching around Alcantara. And now Negros is in the penalty with 9:07 to go. San Juan just has one foul. So this situation reversed here in the second quarter.
Correct, and useless yung foul na yun ni Dennis Madrid. Nasa half court yung bantay niya. Walang threat. Hindi ganyan ang foul.
Hindi naman makakatira to. Capobles. I don't know why the Slashers are tempted into all these reach-in fouls.
Kanina si Madrid this time. Romy De La Rosa. So one-on-one situation here for Danny Capobles.
And halftime, by the way, we'll feature the best plays of the Southern Conference. And of course, our halftime highlights. Courtesy of Mark Molina and the halftime reports from Bobby Yan and Patricia Hesler. May bago pa sa ina yan.
Ibang-iba ang atmosphere dito sa Bacolod.
Negros team consultant Jim Juan and head coach Robert Sison. Danny Capotes with 4 points. The lead is 2.
They have to get the ball inside again to John Perez. He needs to touch the ball in this play.
There's a pick. Abdel getting in his foul.
I think that was a pass to John Perez.
Bruce Dasha, easy finger roll. And now, San Juan has tied the game.
Itong points of turnovers ng San Juan, medyo malaki-laki na dito, kaya sila nakabalik yung game natin. But they have to get the ball inside. The main man, John Perez.
Alvarez protesting innocence and actually has perfected through the years. There's a fast break brought to you by FedEx. We live to deliver. And this guy just hangs in.
May halftime din to sila.
And Bobby Yan has an update. Bobby?
Yes, Bill Mark, alam mo si Coach Philip Cesar making a statement here, not to the Negros Slashers, but to his players. Alam mo, it all started when he kept Bonel Balingit on the floor until 2 minutes in the first quarter. Kahit na wala pang ginagawa sa Bonel, pinapakita na sa players na as long as we play our game, slowly but surely makakahabol tayo. And like this second unit on the floor, they're not playing anything special. They're playing within their game. Capobres, Pumoposte, Rivas, follow-up, si Dasha on the fast break. They're not doing anything different. They're just playing their game and not being affected by the crowd nor the referee's calls. Bill Mark, back to you.
Okay, well, they've got a system and they're sticking to it. That's why we are tied at 33.
Tama yun, dahil sa paramihan ng highlights dito, kala mo lamang na lamang itong Negros Slashers eh. But if you look at the score, ito, 34-33, 1 point down lang itong San Juan Knights.
That was the third foul on Bruno Bananes, by the way. But he was checking the second free throw. And look at the Slashers fight for the ball. Chelsea Ferios, pinituan ng foul.
Third foul na yan. John Perez.
O nakabawi na si Banyares.
Ito si Banyares, gusto yung mga 4 fouls, pati lang 5 fouls. Kung ang kapalit ng John Perez getting his 3rd or 4th also,
It'll be worth it.
sulit na sulit.
Sulit dyan.
So free throw shooting time here again for Wilmer Banyares.
May sukli pa siyang free throw.
And Coach Robert Sison will be forced to take out John Perez here.
And the defense of San Juan is what has made a difference. They've really thrown Negros out of sync.
Itong second unit nila has come out of the bench and is playing very, very good defense.
De La Rosa cannot make an opening for himself. Perez underneath, tries to bang it inside.
Anytime he gets the ball in his sweet spot down low, automatic 2 points yan for John Perez.
And you can see the pride. Offensive foul of Banyares, setting a moving kick.
That's number 4. Fourth call on Wilmer Banyares here, so they have to put another guy here on John Perez.
And they said this game doesn't make a difference in the playoffs.
Correct. Nag-adjust to si Coach Robert Sison. Si Alvin Ting was supposed to come in for John Perez. Binulungan niya, sabi niya, sinunod natin ang labas mo.
Okay. As you can tell when the player wants to stay in the game. Cardell whirling, firing, short, gets it back, fires again. Long this time. Rivas, all 6'8", bringing up the ball. Dasha, lost it. Rivas again.
Counter steal from Rocky Rivas.
Dasha, skies. It's out. That may foul.
Foul on Dasha reaching in against Alvin Ting. So Alvin Ting showing his contribution. Yan ang contribution sa Slashers. Solid defense, inside presence, saka yung rebounding.
Maui for Dennis Madrid. 6:59 to go. The score pegged at 36-33.
So the Slashers is back to its original starting lineup.
At ngayon, babalik na naman si Bonel Balingit at Chito Victorero at magkakaroon tayo ng timeout. Magbabalik ang inyong NBA game. Balingit now guarding Carrios. Oh boy.
This is a great matchup here.
Carrios fall away, got clipped.
Foul because of Bonel Balingit.
Only a second. And this is an intriguing matchup. You don't see Balingit and Rivas on the floor for an extended period.
That's right, pero kayo, kailangan na silang magsabay talaga because they have to stop John Carrios.
Carrios, lucky bounce. Tapa na, pumasok pa. Ngayong hapon, Pilipinas, you are watching the NBA games. The Negros Slashers hosting San Juan Knights.
Wala pang miss na foul sa si John Carrios. 3 out of 3 so far in this game.
Both teams have been shooting impressively from the line. Valero against Willard, that's the matchup. Capobles now against De La Rosa.
So we go back to the free throw line here.
Third foul on De La Rosa, so team foul situation looking very bad for Negros.
So ito si Danny Capobles getting the better of Romy De La Rosa sa post matchup nila. He has baited De La Rosa for 2 fouls already in this quarter.
And Ruben De La Rosa replaces his kuya.
So I guess ito si Ruben naman ngayon ng depensa dito kay Danny Capobles.
Nakita mo, nagkikwentuhan sila ni Chito Victorero. They used to be teammates on the Manila Stars.
Alvin halos lumipad sa labas kanina. Medyo nasagi lang siya ni Bonel eh. Ano siyang pinilapon.
38-35. Slashers once led by 12, but as we often say, that's history. Carrios pulling out Balingit. Shot clock down to 1. He fires and makes it! Quickly now to Patricia Heslett.
Yes, Maui Villar is back in the game, but we might not see a full intensity in his game because may fever siya yesterday. According to him, alalay lang muna kasi hindi pa na masyadong kaya. Dear coach,
Thanks a lot, Patricia. Davis short.
That's probably the reason why Coach Robert Season is using 3-point guards in this game. Si Alvis Reyes, Maui Villar, and Dennis Madrid dahil hindi pala 100% ko din si Maui Villar.
And after the adrenaline rush is gone,
Just like yung second win, medyo mahirap na tuloy yan kung hindi ka 100%. They have to go back here to John Carrios.
40-35. Cartel has been silent in this quarter. Well, now, long three-pointer. Off the glass and out. Will stay with Negros.
New shot clock here for 3 seconds left na lang.
Dahil buong na lang.
Hindi na makakasa din yung tira ni Maui. So now it's Miles Rodriguez and Bonel Balingit again at the same time.
Escalabio returns. Carrios from the corner, hit the iron. Alvin Teng trying to fish a foul in a crowd. Forces it up. Gets a foul from Amazi Rodriguez.
Ang sikip sa loob. Pero to si Alvin Teng workhorse talaga to. Dalawang isang 6'9 tsaka isang 6'7 yung kalaban niya. Pero showing tenacity. That's Alvin Teng.
Blocked the first time. Gumawa siya ng puwang. Napatras na si Randy Alcantara ba? Matapakan pa.
And the excellent foul shooting of the Slashers. continue here in the second quarter.
Now that's what's keeping them out of trouble. Tipped in by Ferrios. Gets a foul up. Nope. Hindi magkaamuyan yung dalawang magkakampi.
Pero if you're Robert Season, you'll be happy with that. Two players nakaaway para sa loose ball.
Kesa
walang pupunta doon.
Calagio still quiet. Galing and whips it over. Victorero to Amanzi Rodriguez for the finger roll. Great ball movement by San Juan.
Great job. Good recognition by Bunel Balingit. Double team from the baseline. Na-spot na si Chico Victorero underneath.
Bang. Been out of his range. Ferrios. Jump hook. Yes. He's smoking. He's got 13 points.
And he's getting in the zone now.
It's one thing to come into the game in the zone. It is another to will yourself into it.
Correct. And he's showing his entire repertoire now here. Si John Ferrios. May jump hook. Merong power move to the basket. As we look at that pass from Bunel Balingit. Great play there.
It's an assist brought to you by Medical. Bilis action sa headache. Foul by the way on Velar. Free throw shooting has been impeccable. 15 out of 20 for San Juan. Negros 17 out of 20.
Excellent numbers for both teams.
Bad pass by Cardel. Alcantara for three. Big turnaround there, and now the lead is just a basket. 43-41. 4 minutes and 20 to go.
With the way this game is going, hindi magkakalayan itong both teams ito. Malamang hanggang fourth quarter to, nip and takateo talaga.
Cardel working on Alcantara. Gets a good step. Wrap around pass. Lost. Out of bounds.
I don't know why they keep on going to that isolation with John Cardel when John Ferrios is so hot inside. They have to get the ball to John Ferrios.
Here by Cardel. Taking off the glass. Victorero wants to get the quick two. Alcantara. Legal defense, I think.
Warning the Negros Slashers for the illegal defense for 18 Juan Ferrios.
Is that Islander 3-point shot from Randy Alcantara.
May kapal ng urig. Tibay ng urig. Stack formation for the Knights to free Calagio. They have done a good job of shutting Calagio down in this game.
Hindi nabibigyan ng plays dito si Chris Calagio.
Better fingers by Amanzi Rodriguez. Ruben De La Rosa left the ball behind. Underneath Alvin Teng.
Gandang pasa Ruben De La Rosa to Alvin Teng.
Well, he's growing up.
Kaya ito, na-out-hustle ni Alvin Teng si Bunel Balingit at si Amanzi Rodriguez.
Calagio again denied the shot. 3 seconds on Bunel Balingit. All because nakapwesto na siya dahil titira na dapat si Calagio.
Calagio usually does not hesitate. He takes that shot all the time.
This assist is brought to you by Medical. Bilis aksyon sa headache. 47-41. De La Rosa. Tapped out by Calagio. 7 seconds on the clock. 3 minutes and 3 for the first half.
7 seconds.
Ferrios inside. Rola lost the handle.
Sayang yung magandang pasa from John Ferrios. Tumawi wala rin inside.
Talagang natigil yung hininga ng mga manonood dito. Slashers call a timeout. They lead 47-41.
Turning the tables around. Yan ang halos mortal sin yan for the San Juan Knights. Being out-rebounded 7-0 when you have the height and the heft advantage inside.
Calagio, picture perfect free throw.
Phil Newton for Chico Victorero.
Phil Newton replaces Victorero.
Kasi Calagio talaga halos very perfect and really sick ang bola. Wala ka nang maihingi pa kung sa pagandahan ng form. Kasi Chris Calagio.
Alam ko sasabihin mo, pagandahan na lang. Pero maraming sasangayon doon.
Marami din,
Wala. There's more athletic Newton. Tang. Short cutter. Block down to 8 seconds. Tang. Step back jumper. It's going to be short. Up the ball stayed with him too long. Alagio thinking three. No, goes to Alcantara. Wants one. Yes!
Big three, second free ball shot from Gandhi Alcantara. Patay sila.
You gotta get back on defense. The Royals at 15, 49-46. Game opening up now.
Yun talaga ang special din ang Negros Slashers. Pag natutulog ka sa transition defense mo, kakainin ka ng buhay nito ng Negros Slashers.
Iluluwa yung buto. Alagio nudging up De La Rosa. There, the height finally makes a difference for San Juan.
Finally, an offensive rebound here for the San Juan Knights in the second quarter.
1-point lead for Negros. They led all the way. Alvin Tang left momentarily open. Babied it. Got deflected the second time. But then De La Rosa got hammered by Newton.
So despite the presence of Omansi Rodriguez and Bunel Balingit, nakakakuha pa rin ng offensive rebounds ng mga small guys, mga slashers like Robert De La Rosa.
There's a three-point shot brought to you by Islander Sandals. May kapal na urig, tibay na urig. This is where we see the difference between the veterans and the younger players. Katulad ni Omanzi, Rodriguez, halimbawa, nagugulat pag tinutulak eh.
Tama.
Pero yung mga datihan na kagaya ni Alvin Teng, pagka na binaso mo yan, may pwesto ulit.
Totoo yun, hindi pa masyadong sanay sa banggaan ko si Omansi Rodriguez, saka natutulak pa siya. But in time, yung hindi lang yung strength, yung experience mo sa rebounding, yung malaking bagay din yan.
Hanggat hindi pumipit yung referee, tigil. 50-48, 90 seconds to go in the second quarter. Newton, paling it.
Bad foul by Leo Batog.
Tinukura niya sa likod.
Tsaka wala sa sweet spot si Bunel Balingit, halos nasa corner na siya. He will give him 2 foul shots here.
Fourth foul on Batog. Right replaces De La Rosa. Offensive boards in the second quarter. San Juan 1, Negros 11. I'm sure that is a stat they will pound on at halftime.
Sisilipin mabuti ni Coach Philip sa mamaya yun. One thing that Negros has to realize here, has to recognize is when Bunel Balingit gets the ball inside, they have to double team. Pero minsan nasa may baseline si Bunel Balingit, double team pa rin sila.
Velar got fouled from behind. Alagio surprised, hopping mad. In the second quarter, John Ferriols has scored 13 points. The rest of the team, 11. But it's still a very high-scoring game nonetheless.
He's carrying his team now by on his shoulders was si John Ferriols. And despite scoring 13 points, 1 point lang ang lamang dito ng Negros Slashers. If you're Coach Philip Cesar, you have to feel good. Ferriols is scoring, Cardell is scoring. Balingit hasn't scored too much together with Calagio, but you're only 2 points down.
And your offense can only get better. That's right. 52-49. Like we have a timeout by the San Juan Knights. We'll be back in a moment. Player ng mga 70s and 80s na naging coach. Very practical, very simple instructions.
Saka straight to the point talaga yung instructions niya.
Gusto niya maintindihan agad ng player.
Ang gagawin niya ng San Juan, the designated double team. They will double John Ferriols every time he touches the ball.
Velar called for a foul.
Second. 2 fouls yan pa lang kay Maui Walang.
Pero 11 foul na ang Negros. They have had 21 fouls in the first half. San Juan has had 19.
And this is the only reason why San Juan is staying with the Slashers. Yung free throw shooting ready to this second quarter.
Madrid replaces Velar.
And that's a good substitution. With a minute left, nakapagpapahinga dito si Maui. Tapos yung halftime break pa, medyo mahaba-haba ang pahinga dito ni Maui.
Newton muffing both free throws. Flashers will call a timeout.
30-second timeout. Negros
30-second variety brought to you by Remicon. Buhay ang dugo, buhay ang lakas. Let's go to the huddle of Robert Season if we can.
Okay, we go back. We go back to 19 pounds. We go back. Box, okay. Dennis get the ball. Okay. Okay. Sid, you inbound the ball, okay? Take out the ball. Give it to Dennis. Okay, Dennis has to receive the ball. Romy, you're here. Leo, sorry. Double steal for Romy. Romy turn. Hit natin si Romy. Go.
Okay, so when it comes down to situations like this, every little advantage will help going into halftime.
That's right. They're setting up a play for Romy De La Rosa. Double screen ang bibigay ni Leo Batog tsaka kay John Ferrios kay Romy De La Rosa. Ito.
There it is, but Madrid doesn't get him the ball. Eladio practically bear hugging De La Rosa. Madrid inside, but reverse layup. Nope. They fight for it. It goes to Alcantara. Eladio looking downstairs. They clear it out instead. Goes baseline. Goes to Alcantara. Barrios tapped it out of bounds. Biglang mahawakan ng San Juan.
Tama yung ginagawa ng San Juan Knights. Ina-isolate nila si Chris Calagio on De La Rosa because may 3 fouls itong si Romy De La Rosa. But so far, si Chris Calagio has not taken advantage.
Batog trying to front Balingit. Alcantara denied the 3-point shot. Rodriguez. Balingit. Tapped out by Rodriguez now. Hirap na hirap ang San Juan ipasok sa loob.
Finally, an offensive rebound from Bonel Balingit but still, hindi pa rin siya nakapag-materialize. Ito, last play here for the Slashers.
Steal by Alcantara. Blindsiding Madrid. Goes up. Tap. Newton with a lay-in, but there was a foul on White. Where did that come from?
So a chance for San Juan to tie this game going into halftime.
Let's see that again. I've got to see that again.
Okay, last play, good steal from Randy Alcantara. Nabitawan niya.
So there's a foul.
Medyo wala na foul during that play.
2 seconds left, but going strong. They miss it. So the San Juan Knights have climbed back from a 12-point deficit and will use that as ammunition going into the second half. Our score is deadlocked at 52. We'll show you our NBA best plays, our first half highlights, and of course our halftime stats. Stay with us.
Big to all time na talagang outplayed sila ng Negros Slashers ng first half eh. John Cardell played well, John Ferrios played well. On the other side, wala masyadong contributions from the key guys of the San Juan Knights. But we have a tied ball game. So itong second quarter, kung pumutok si Bonel, pumutok si Chris Calagio, and then if they can contain John Ferrios, ibang usapan to.
Okay, let's go to the highlight reel. Partner, if you please.
Tapos, Negros Slashers starting out strong here. Here's Maui Ular with a pass. 3-point shot here for Romy De La Rosa. Boom! Kaya talagang mainit na umpisa si Romy De La Rosa. Another one from Romy De La Rosa. Another jumper to start this game. Tuwan-tuwa ang crowd dito sa Bacolod. This time it's John Cardell's turn. 3-point shot from the wing. Talagang very, very hot start here for the Negros Slashers. This Amansi Rodriguez, one of the few offensive rebounds dito ng San Juan Knights. Yan ang kailangan lang gawin second half. More offensive rebounds. A long three for Calagio to end the first quarter and keep San Juan close. Dito starting the second quarter, John Ferrios will go to work to give Negros an early lead here in the second quarter. Great move there by John Ferrios. Pinaril pa niya si Rivas dito. Ito Romy De Rosa. Another 3-point shot. Start ng second quarter naman to. So nakatatlong 3-point shot si Romy De Rosa in the game. Here we go back to John Ferrios, who was in the zone in the second quarter. Jump shot over Ponel Palingit. And then one of the few good inside plays here for San Juan. Palingit to Victolero to Omansi Rodriguez. Another play here for John Ferrios. Jump hook again over the 6'9" Ponel Palingit. Dito Alcantara kept him in the game with a 3-point shot. Here's a steal from John Cardell. No fouls called there. 2 points for John Cardell. So next play natin. Great pass play. Good assist pass. Ruben De La Rosa to Alvin Teng. And then the next one we see another 3-point shot here from Randy Alcantara. Yes! Keeping someone close. And then itong last play natin of the half. A steal here by Alcantara to Newton. This tied the game at 52-all. So nandiyan tayo kaya 52-all going into the second half. Kung napapansin nyo, mas marami talagang highlights ang Negros Slashers. Pero yung San Juan Knights converted a lot of foul shots during the second quarter to keep this game tied.
Do you think this pattern will continue in the second half?
Very physical na laro natin, so this might end up to be a free throw shooting contest. Ang daming free throw shots ng first half natin. So whoever will have the better free throw percentage in the fourth quarter and third quarters might prevail in this game.
All right, and now let's turn you over to Bobby Yan with the report on the San Juan Knights.
Yes, Bill, sa halftime dito ng San Juan Knights, talagang coaches are not happy with the performance of Ponel Palingit. Nakaka 1 point pa lang siya dito sa first half. Alam natin, Ponel played one of the best games of the season against the same squad, the Negros Slashers on April 26. Ponel scored 21 points, 13 rebounds. Like I said, only 1 point right now. He's being reduced right now to a decoy. And yung tanong naging effective decoy ba siya? Ang sagot dyan hindi. He has only assisted in 1 play, which is only 2 points. So, Coach Cesar must find a way to get Ponel involved on offense or he has to sit him down in favor of Rafi Rivas. Isa pang point dito for San Juan. Pag nag-turnover sila, huwag sila mataranda. Ang nangyari, pag nag-turnover sila, they want to get the points back right away, coming down on offense. In other words, composure kailangan pag nag-turnover itong San Juan Knights. So yan po ang adjustments dito para sa San Juan Knights. I'll turn you over now to Patricia.
Yes, Negros is very intensified and dedicated to win this last home game. In this last encounter of these two teams, Negros field goals was a lot lesser than of San Juan. They wanted to improve that. Even their free throws has a lot of improvements now. Early in the first half, their rebounds is also increased. With what Coach Robert is doing, early adjustments that these players are really adapting, they might win this game. More on NBA when we return.
Mula sa New Cebu City Coliseum, ang mga Damawenyos at Pampangueños nagdarasal at nananabik dahil siguradong patayan ang labanan para sa huling playoff spot sa Magic 4 ng NBA Crossover Cup.
Estong with a strong goal! Felix Delano, Santos for the win! And goal!
Huwag palalampasin sa June 7 alas 6:30 ng gabi sa Studio 23. Live sa Brengyao Convention Center, San Fernando, Pampanga. NBA!
The mammoth crowd has not shifted here in the USLS gym in Bacolod, and take a look at the scoring leaders. Scoring has really been spread out.
Tama yung si John Ferriols, 15 points, 13 points of those coming in the second quarter. Cardell with 13, De La Rosa 9, and then De La Rosa 5. Ito naman sa San Juan, Calagio started out slow by around 9 points siya. Itong second quarter lang siya halos gumawa to si Chris Calagio. And then Rodriguez 8, Alcantara 8. Ang absent dito, Bunel Balingit, 1 point pa lang.
At kita mo naman, halos lahat ng pinasok ng bawat coach may contribution din sa opensa, pero ang problema nito, yung go-to guy, lalong-lalo na para sa San Juan.
Correct, kailangan mag-step up ni Bunel Balingit dito, kundi a lot of pressure will fall on their bench. Noong first half natin, the starters of the Slashers outplayed the starters of the San Juan Knights. Pero pagpasok ng second team ng second unit ng San Juan Knights, sila Rivis, sila Dasha, sila Ferreira, they played well and they were able to catch up with the Negros Slashers.
Tingnan natin ang ating key matchup. John Ferriols alone has outscored the triumvirate of Balingit, Ribes, and Rodriguez, who have the advantage in rebounds. And
John Ferriols has to do that again in the second half if Negros is to win this game. He has to have another monster second half. Probably finish with 30 points to lead this team to victory.
well, we've seen it done before. For the San Juan Knights, what would you prescribe?
They have to have better spacing, get the ball inside to Balingit, and then mas magandang ball movement. Kagaya nung ginawa nila kanina, kumat si Chito Victorero, napasa ni Bunel Balingit, and then nalibis si Juan Rodriguez. Every time they get the ball to Bunel, they have to have proper spacing.
Okay.
Ito lang, tignan natin halftime highlights natin. It's very, very uncanny to see with the Slashers with 23 turnover points, the Knights with 7, pero tablang game natin.
Oo.
Talagang medyo nakakapagtaka talaga. Field goal percentage na lumamang dito ang Slashers, but both teams actually shooting well. 3-point field goal percentage, lamang ang Knights dito. Free throws, lamang na konti ang Slashers. Pero ang key dito sa free throws, Negros has attempted 24 times, 20 out of 24. San Juan, 19 out of 28. So we had 52 attempts from the line in the first half. If this continues, very, very important ang percentage dito.
At bukas na tayo matatapos.
Yun na nga. Baka hindi na tayo matapos ito.
But it just goes to show the intensity as you take a look at another matchup here. Calagio has just been denied even a touch of the basketball for most of the first
Ito si
period.
Calagio, very, very quiet, 9 points. Yung 3-point shot lang niya sa end ng first quarter, tapos halos parang nag-disappear na to si Calagio eh. Pero kung titignan mo, may 9 points na rin pala to.
And big numbers, 75% from 3-point range for San Juan. Courtesy of Randy Alcantara, and that percentage just dipped a little bit.
We start the second half. You are watching the Negros Slashers versus the San Juan Knights. Bill Velasco here with Mark Molina, Bobby Yan, and Patricia Heslet coming to you live as always from the University of St. LaSalle gym in Bacolod City. That's going to be a clothesline foul on Bonel Balingit.
Another must pa dito sa San Juan Knights. How do they stop John Ferriols? If they put Balingit on him, he takes him off the dribble.
Well, they're not allowed to use firearms, that's for one.
If they put a smaller guy on John Ferriols, dadali naman niya sa poste. Do they have to double John Ferriols? Tingnan natin kung gagawin nila. Ayan, double lang. Pati times na open man. Yan ang importante dito sa game natin kung paano masastop si John Ferriols.
5 points now for Alvin Teng. Victorero, Alcantara. A lot of offensive options actually for San Juan. It's just getting the ball to them at the right time. Victorero missing. Rodriguez trying to go over somebody's back. Wala.
They're trailing Ferriols.
And that will get the crowd pumped up here. Start of the third quarter. 4 straight points for the Slashers.
Ito na naman tayo. Maarangkada na naman ang Negros. Calagio, fishing for a foul, got blocked.
And this is exactly how we started nung first quarter natin.
De La Rosa, airball.
Yun lang ang diferensya. Si De La Rosa hindi nag-miss ng first quarter.
Kaso naunahan na naman sa pwesto si Umansi Rodriguez at may foul siya.
Sa transition kasi, nauunahan lagi as we look at that layup from John Ferriols, nauunahan lagi ni Ferriols tsaka ni Teng, si Balingit tsaka si Umansi Rodriguez.
Okay, this assist was brought to you by Medical Bilis Action sa headache. Ferriols. Double team, has to pass it off.
3 seconds of Alvin Teng.
So that time, may mismatch doon si Alvin Teng, si Chito Victorero lang nagbabantay sa kanya pero hindi siya nakita ni John Ferriols kaya nagtagal si Alvin Teng doon eh.
Parang may dalawang pader na nakatayo doon sa tabi niya eh.
Isang padel tsaka isang poste.
Sama mo rin ano. Buti na lang hindi tayo naririnig. 56-52, Victorero.
Unusual for him to miss 2 in a row. And I will not be around you after the game.
I'll make it easy. I'll give them your room number.
Si Bobby yan na makikita nila dyan.
Tama. Cardell looking for an open shot. Again, question for Negros. How will they sustain this?
Ang problema, their starters are playing so well, but their bench is not. It's a matter of rotating them properly. Hindi na kasi sabay-sabay mo yung starters sila.
Big slam here by Omanzi Rodriguez.
Siguro ngayon, dapat pag nakaupo si John Ferriol, sa loob si John Cadell. Pag lumabas naman si John Cadell, you have to back John Ferriol in.
Para may konting firepower.
Ako, hindi pwedeng lumabas itong lima.
Cadell bombing away. He gets his own miss. Ball just squirted through somebody's hands. Alcantara,
No need to dribble.
And again, San Juan not giving in. They're down by only 2 points here in the third quarter.
they're just going about their business.
Correct. Tama yung ginagawa nila eh. Lumamang ang San Juan, lumamang ang Negros. Laro lang sila. Lumamang sila, laro lang sila. Very workman-like attitude for the San Juan Knights.
Stepping on the end line. And you know, that attitude takes a lot of the emotion out of the game.
Correct, tama yun. Baliktad na baliktad. Itong Negros Slashers fired up by emotion eh.
Oo.
Ito namang yung San Juan Knights. Laro lang tayo. Very, very systematic ang atake.
Meanwhile, here's a no fear slam dunk from Manzi Rodriguez.
Chito Victorino has missed 3 in a row.
8:56. Villar decides on a three-pointer off the iron. Kalingit was tempted to throw it ahead.
Romy De La Rosa was there to cover Randy Alcantara.
Alcantara wants to post up against De La Rosa. Lost him.
Rios. Villar, 4-on-2 situation. Cardell for three. Yes!
Great recognition by Maui Villar. 4-on-3, open 3-point shot. Good shot for John Cardell.
61-56.
Kung makikita na talaga kasi Maui na kasi John Cardell agad na magkasama ito.
Manzi Rodriguez, following the play, has made 12 points already.
And he's starting to flex his muscle inside here in the third quarter. 2 straight baskets here for Manzi Rodriguez.
Learning to step into the shot. 7.5 minutes remaining in the third quarter. Wala, open jumper. Short.
I don't think Maui Villar has made that outside shot in this game today.
Wala pa. Alagio. Again, denied the three-point shot.
Nandun na naman si Romy De La Rosa.
Kalingit to a cutting Rodriguez. Went through his hand. Alcantara for three. Off the glass, goes to Alagio, creates. Alagio pleading for a foul. Cardell to Ferriol.
Great play by John Cardell. Yun ang nangyari yun because he was able to make the three-point shot kanina. Ayun, to make off the Manzi Rodriguez. Dribble penetration, drop pass.
Pero titignan mo yung bench sa San Juan, hindi pa sila nag-aalala.
Wala. Very, very cool lang sa mga Knights. Because they know they can win anywhere. They know they can win on the road. They're only 5 points down. Pwede pa to.
At hindi pa ganun kaganda nilalaro nila.
Correct.
Three-point shot brought to you by Islanders Sandals. May kapal na ulig. Aurig. Tibay na urig. Offensive foul. Third on Calagio. We have a timeout. San Juan is down by 5.
Alaska.
Against Malingit.
Squeezed by a double team. That's what San Juan wants. Calagio inside Pereira. Left-handed layup.
Isa lang nalipi si Chris Calagio doon. Nabitawan pa niya yung volley. Was forced to pass it to Pereira. But it turned out to be an assist pass from Chris Calagio.
Negros has not been able to lead in double figures. San Juan has always been on their tail. Abdel off the iron. Reverse layup by Kane. Ferriol tried to tip it in. Rodriguez says that's enough. Pereira, Alcantara. Back to Pereira. Missing the layup. Ferriol. Wala. No!
Maui missing a round robin layup.
Dalawa na yan.
Oo, parehong pasa ni John Cadell.
Calagio trying a three-pointer.
Dito makikita natin kung ginagawa ng San Juan Knights ngayon. Every time John Ferriol gets the ball, ang nagdo-double team palagi si Manzi Rodriguez. Good strategy on the part of Coach Felix Cesar.
De La Rosa for three. Pero may foul.
Foul on Calagio.
That's 3 free throws for Romy De La Rosa.
Correct. And that will stop the momentum of the San Juan Knights. Medyo pabalik ka sila sa game natin eh.
7 4 fouls on Calagio.
Very slight contact that time. Ang mabigat dun yung 4th personal foul pa ni Chris Calagio. First of 3 shots for Ruben De La Rosa. Romy De La Rosa, I'm sorry.
It's okay, I'm sure he's used to it. Lalo na ngayon, pareho na sila ng buhok.
Oo. Nagsama na sa isang team. Nagpareho pa ng buhok. Buti lang merong headband tong si Ruben.
Huwag mo na itanong kung sino mas Kobe, baka alaway ka. 65-60. Romy De La Rosa has been a stabilizing force.
Correct. Veteran presence na pinapakita niya si Robert De La Rosa. Marami nang pinagdaanan yan. So whatever happens, yung emotional level niyan rarely changes.
Rafi Rivas back on the floor. Bruce Dasha likewise. Dennis Madrid also. De La Rosa gambled. Dasha tumalingit. Hindi nabigit na agad.
Finally, a field goal for Bonel Balingit.
And look, Ferreira denying Madrid the basketball, forcing Cardell to bring it up.
Ito ang line ng napamali sa San Juan Knights kanina.
Tama.
Rivas, Dasha, and Ferreira.
Ferreira rolls off that jump shot. Calagio. Take the pass, went to Dasha. Deflected.
Great defense by Alvin Teng on Dasha.
It's been a tight ball game since midway first quarter. De La Rosa.
Three-point shot from Romy De La Rosa. Another useless foul there by John Cordell. Yan ang dapat iwasan ng Negros Slashers sa mga ganang klaseng fouls.
De La Rosa, by the way, has 15 points.
Islander free here for Romy De La Rosa. Very, very good setup play for Coach Robert Season.
Calagio fumbled the inbound. Stolen by the Slashers. Stolen back, rather. 69-62. Alam mo, sinasabi ng San Juan na composure. Kaya talagang kailangan higpitan pa ng konti. Ferrios.
9 points now, 9-point lead now for the Slashers. Ito, very critical stage to. San Juan must not give in. Hindi, this game can be over quickly.
Alvin trying to steal it. He gives up a foul. 21 points, by the way, for John Ferrios. And we still have 3:40 to go in the third period.
So hindi pa rin nila nasusolve yung John Ferrios problem ito sa Juan Knights. Now they're countering with Vilmer Banyales and Capobles. Danny Capobles, he played well also in the first half. A smaller lineup now for the Negros Slashers. Pero kung si Vilmer Banyales, kaya niyang mag-match up kay John Ferrios.
Yun. Capobles. It's De La Rosa. Backs it into the paint. Drops it down. Rebound for the jam.
Capobles continuing his excellent play, posting up De La Rosa. Great assist pass to Rivas.
Cardell looking downstairs to Batog. Fakes a pass. Finally gets it to him.
Offensive foul.
Offensive foul. Medyo may hawi.
Very clear.
That's number 5 on Batog.
So mabigat din yun. 5 personal fouls now on Leo Batog.
At ito, suking natin. Another no-fear jam from Rafi Rivas. Ano ba, dami na niyang ganito.
Palagi, halos every game. Nakakadalawa pa nga yan eh. Every game.
Pereira to Dasha, leaned into the shot.
Rivas again!
At binato nila kay Cardell. Naunahan niya si Rivas. May foul naman si Capobres, counted pa.
And if your coach Philip says you have to be upset with that play. Rafi Rivas was the one who converted the shot, and he was
the first guy
one
there
on defense. So something is wrong here.
Kita mo. Pass break brought in by FedEx. We live to deliver. Dapat doon may tawag na kasi kinakaasa mo kasi Candel. But he kept his composure, made the shot. And the Slashers have a 73-66 lead. We have a timeout.
After years of research, Nestle introduces new...
And this is a huge slice of the crowd here. And yes, they do love the Slashers.
Enjoying every minute of this game itong crowd natin dito sa Bacolod City.
Oh, it's been a very high quality ball game. 73-66. San Juan in bonus situation. Ang Negros dadalawa pa lang ang foul.
Very well played tong game natin ngayon. Both teams really playing well at coming out prepared in this game.
And on Wednesday Warfare, the Pasig Rizal Pirates visit the Cebu Gems. And the one we've been waiting for to determine the final placing in the semifinals, Davao versus Pampanga. And now Bobby Ann has the word on the Knights.
Yes, Bill, like you guys noticed, di pa talaga nagpapanik ang San Juan Knights now. Yan ang nararamdaman ko dito sa bench nila. Di ka na just weathering the storm like now. Like in the first quarter, nag-search yung Negros, nakahabol sila. Ngayon, third quarter, nag-search yung Negros, nakahabol sila. Unti-unti nila. Pero just last 2 minutes and 30, talagang crucial for the San Juan Knights that they execute and come down faster on defense. Bill Mark, back to you.
All right, meanwhile, John Ferriols given a foul and maybe a technical for taunting.
On John Ferriols.
Oh, yeah, he waved his
Dito kay Vivis.
yes.
Pero tama yung sinabi ni Bobby, no? Hindi pa talaga nagpapanik itong San Juan Knights. With only 8 points down. One good run and makakalamang pa tayo sa ball game na to. So the technical is called on John Ferriols.
And Danica Cobras will designated shooter for San Juan. Silences the crowd.
Ito, and then 2 more foul shots here for Rafi Rivas.
I look at Rafi Rivas and I imagine the potential of this kid.
Grabe. Ang upside dito si Rafi Rivas. Wala pa, he hasn't scratched the surface of what he can do as a basketball player. Pero pwede maging ganito eh. Pwede maging small forward type ang laro nito si Rafi Rivas.
And of course, he has to work on his free throw shooting. And by the way, thanks to Kima's pension, a home away from home in Bacolod. Rivas makes second. He's in double figures with 10.
He has provided the spark off the bench here for the San Juan Knights.
Oh, that's true.
Keeping them in this ball game.
Pereira shadowing Madrid. Candel stuck against Dasha. Now goes inside, deflected. Progress couldn't get a handle on it. And he gives up a foul against Madrid. Progress really beside himself with frustration.
Frustration foul na nangyari doon. But that was not the fault of Capobres dahil alanganin siya to get that pass eh. Pero pinasa pa rin ni Ringa to si Rivas.
Pero penalty na San Juan.
1-on-1 situation here for Dennis Madrid. Ito free throw shooting, as we mentioned kanina, very important here in the last 2 quarters.
Ega Ignacio, Sid White, and Ruben De La Rosa check in for Negros. Good, hits the front end of the 1-on-1.
Dito Bill, San Juan must make their move now. No John Ferriols, no John Cordell, no Mariela, no Ruben De La Rosa for the Negros Slashers.
That's true. And on the third quarter, the Marataba naman. Good job by Dennis Madrid. Drops it to Sid White. Easy two.
Great play by Dennis Madrid.
And that will really pump up the crowd here in Bacolod City. The lead is 10. Pereira has it knocked away. Isa pa. Had his eye on the basket before he had the ball.
And this is a good substitution by Coach Philip says kailangan na natin si Chito Victorero to provide stability sa backcourt ng San Juan Knights.
78-68. And I think both teams sense that this could be a turning point.
Correct. Itong stage na to, next 3-4 minutes can determine the outcome of this game.
Victorero to him is gathering momentum. He's bumped by Ignacio. Si Rivas kasi bilang manlalaro, mabuelo yan. Has to gather momentum first.
Pag nakabuelo naman to si Rivas, mahirap siyang hintuin dyan inside the paint.
Like a space shuttle.
Now this is a good combination, Rivas and Omansi at the same time. Ayan ang value ni Chito Victorero.
8
If you need
points.
a big shot, he can provide it.
Offensive foul ng Madrid.
At that time, matawagan ng offensive foul, pushing off. Ito si Dennis Madrid.
That's his second. Slashers in the penalty, 1 and 20. Go.
So lalabas dito si Dennis Madrid, Aldrich Reyes naman. Talagang 3-point guard rotation ang ginagamit dito ni Coach Robert Season.
Valero trying to put it inside to Dasha. Then De La Rosa, his eyes lighting up as it's falling almost right. Offensive foul is called on Ruben De La Rosa.
Hindi na dapat ginawa ni Ruben De La Rosa yun dahil meron ng clear path itong si Sid White that time. And
Could be a little bit of frustration also.
and the crowd here in Negros showing frustration.
And their displeasure, they've never been able to break the game open. 78-70, 105 to go. Robert Season with his game face on. They know that psychologically this is a very important game. Traveling on Capobos.
Very important talaga to because maganda yung papasok ng inter-conference phase meron kang baon na 5 state victories. That will give you a lot of confidence, especially playing here in Negros.
Under a minute to go. Reyes leaning in, he's fouled. Somebody held him down. But you know, I'm really amazed at how calm someone is. Parang meron sila alam na hindi natin alam.
Yun nga parang okay lang sa kanila parang meron pa silang tinatago. Because they're only down 8 points and this team is very, very explosive. Dalawang 3 points lang ni Chris Calagio yan mag-iibang complexion ng game natin.
And if you recall, they scored 44 points, an NBA record in the fourth quarter against Surigao.
And the last time they played, they outscored Negros also by 15 points in the fourth quarter. Because Negros was, like this game, was dominating it for 3 quarters also.
79-70, tension so thick, you can reach out and touch it. Yes. Restores a 10-point lead. Rivas double. Valero makes a jumper. They read the drop pass. Aldrich Reyes, wild lead pass. De La Rosa could not keep it in play.
Okay lang yun, the part of the slashers. Yan talagang style nila, aggressive attack on the fast break.
Foul is called on Sid White. Danny Capobres starting to medyo they're not terms of endearment, I can guarantee that.
That's right. Pero magandang matchup to si Danny Capobres and Sid White.
Oh. Dasha will sit down for Calagio. Maybe hoping for another shot after this.
Negros should take the last shot after the foul shots here for Danny Capobres.
Oh, misses.
Ito, last shot time to for Negros. 20 seconds left in the third quarter.
Alex Reyes, Pistolero practically in his jersey. Ega Ignacio pops out, decides to turn around. Doesn't go. San Juan still has a shot. Pistolero, nope. A heart-pounding third quarter ends with Negros on top, 80-70. The San Juan Knights trying to mount a big comeback here. And look at the matchup, Alcantara and De La Rosa.
Sa small forward position natin yan. Medyo lamang dito si Romy De La Rosa at this stage.
We'll be back with the fourth quarter. Batog, by the way. At kanina naman, panglima naman ni Chris Calagio.
So, ang ginagawa dito ni Coach Robert Season ay pinapreserve niya si John Ferriol at si Alvin Ting for the stretch run. And he has the luxury right now because he has a 10-point lead.
You know, San Juan has not been able to get its big man up and running well.
Tama yun, si Buel Balingit. Wala hindi pa yung factor.
Capobres inside. Rodriguez jump hook. You know, that's the perfect shot for him.
Tama yun. Magandang touch ni Omans Rodriguez doon. Both Rivas and Omans Rodriguez should learn that shot.
You think 2 years down the road how frightening that combination could be.
And the foul is called on Chris Calagio.
He's out of his game.
6 fouls on Chris Calagio. 2 useless fouls by Calagio dito sa umpisa ng fourth quarter natin.
And we were just saying they needed to get some scoring from him.
Ngayon somebody has to step up for the San Juan Knights.
And he only has 9 points, has not scored in the second half. And you know, a lot of teams use this to fuel their motivation.
Tama yun. At saka ang very, very glaring dito kay Chris Calagio. Halos walang attempts eh.
Ayun.
Talagang na-stop nila totally si Chris Calagio. It's not a matter of him being off, but they were there at all times. Chris Calagio.
Late game warning on San Juan. Phil Newton will come in.
So far yun ang difference ng laro natin. Yung offense si Chris Calagio is missing for the San Juan Knights.
But you know, they've still got a lot of material to work with. Rodriguez has hardly really done anything yet. They're still in this game. De La Rosa in trouble underneath, goes up, lost it. Okay, maliliit na bagay. Tama yun.
Alex now going against the San Juan Knights.
Calagio averaging 21 points a game, now leaving with just 9. 10:48 to play, 8-point lead for Negros. White posting up Capobres. Double team takes it from the outside.
Big shot there by Sid White. Ang magandang confidence sa binibigay dito ni Robert Season sa bench niya. Ito second unit niya has played well here in the second half, unlike yung first half natin.
Newton. Goes baseline, he's bumped.
Now it's up to the likes of Phil Newton, Chito Vicolero to provide the outside firepower here for the San Juan Knights.
Two fouls on Negros, 2 on San Juan. Negros, remember, has a 4-game winning streak on the line. San Juan. Gets it back. Getting another foul, right?
Si Capobres is always, pag binibigyan na sa poste ni Capobres, good things happen eh. Either he gets fouled or he can create for his teammates eh.
Very deceptive.
Yan siguro ang option na pwede nilang puntahan ngayon.
Kaya na sinabi, foul shooting ang susi sa San Juan pa rin, kaya nakatikit sila.
Correct ngayon near steal by Ruben De La Rosa.
Lumabas sa court na may hawak na bola.
Especially dito sa depensa. Dito yung certain unity ng Negros Slashers. Ano nga, diving for all these points.
Galera, may Karen Mouse, United players, jumpers long. Manzi Rodriguez got hit by Hugnatan in the face.
Foul yung Hugnatan. Second motion si Manzi Rodriguez doon.
That's his foot. I don't know if we see it here. Pero tinamaan sa mukha si Omanzi.
Tinamaan si Manzi. That was a good foul. Talagang foul that was a good call. Foul talaga si Hugnatan pero nag-second motion din si Omanzi Rodriguez.
Still a 10-point lead. And you know, if this game slows down any further, it will be difficult for either team to build any momentum.
Correct. And if that happens, advantage of course the Negros Slashers because they have a 10-point lead.
Well, should put that about. 11-point lead on Negros. The biggest lead is at 12. Philip says it. He normally stands up.
Very, very foul because he Coach Philip says something.
Quite a few fouls from Sid White. They go back to him. Went through two slashes. Will stay with someone. 10 seconds on it now.
This time there was excellent grab defense on Capobres.
And he was asking them to lob the ball over the defense. Look at the foul trouble picture. Alagio and Batog. No, that doesn't mean they left. Foul na parang in-out eh, no? The doctor is in.
So 4 fouls on Ferriols and Rodriguez.
Newton will sit down. Alcantara returns. Good substitution by Philip Cesar.
That's right. Nandito ngayon, saka.
Balingit.
Balingit will come back in.
On Ruben De La Rosa. You know, a lot of fouls are being called with the clock not moving.
That's right. Ito referees are trying to control the game because emotions are running high already.
Fourth on De La Rosa, number 5 on Negros. That will give a 1-1 to San Juan.
That was a foul prior to inbound.
Ito, penalty situation ng Negros Slashers. So, baka makabalik ka naman sa Numan Knights. Remember in the second quarter, they took advantage of the penalty situation and they were able to tie the game at halftime.
At ito, dahil foul before the inbound, it is not a 1-1. It will be a two-shot foul.
Two-shot foul for Rania Alcantara.
May Balingit returns. It has been a very long game.
And we have more than 9 minutes left to play.
Dito ka kasi. Rodriguez taps it to nobody in particular. And Pittsburgh started early.
First game natin kanina.
De La Rosa, so daylight but he traveled first.
You can't blame Ruben De La Rosa that time. Bunel Balingit tsaka Omanzi Rodriguez ang nasa harap niya.
Talagang mapapaisip ka. Do I really want to do this?
Jonathan Cardell for Ruben De La Rosa.
Jonathan Cardell returns and Maui Villar follows him.
Ito na, yung first unit ng Negros Slashers. Isa-isa na bumabalik.
Mamaya konti, susunod si John Ferriols.
Si Ferriols, the reason why he's sitting down, may 4 fouls kasi ito si John Ferriols.
Hugnatan, fouling Balingit.
Para
Para silang magsasayaw.
Jockeying for position
which is fine, and then they started hooking each other's on.
Oo, so 2 free throws here again for one-on-one situation for Bunel Balingit.
5 fouls on Reynel Hugnatan. You know, the clock has been crawling last 4 or 5 days.
So last minute natin sa game clock natin is taken about 5 minutes already.
Balingit gets the roll.
So he earns one more free throw here. Chance to cut the lead to 8 points. Pwede pa to, 8 points down Sunwan Knights with 9 minutes left in this
I
game.
think that's what they're counting on. Balingit upward the second free throw. Abdel is open. Drives inside over to Velar.
And finally, nakashoot sa perimeter ito si Maui Velar.
85-74. Balingit with an offensive foul on Hugnatan.
Offensive foul that time. Bunel Balingit and Davis very frustrated. Sa foul ni Bunel Balingit.
It's an assist brought to you by Medical. Divisaksyon sa headache.
Ganda ng hang time ni John Gardel, no? Nakita pa si Maui Velar sa that jump shot.
Offensive foul on Ega Ignacio now. Use this behind to set the screen.
And we're seeing him fouls every 10 seconds.
Alam mo, di na ako makahinga. Alvin Teng replaces Ignacio. And you know, Rivas is so frustrated because he gets into position right away. Tsaka alam niya, baka kaya niya yung tao niya.
Tapos hindi siya nabibigyan ng
Alcantara to Victoriano.
big shot there for Victorero.
San Juan within arm's reach.
Ano yung ibibigay mo si Chito Victorero? There's one guy who can carry them back. It has to be Chito Victorero.
Absolutely. White. Then holds it steps Willa. Clock's down to 4 seconds. Off the foot of 10. San Juan wants to run it up. Victorero to Rivas and he stops it.
Great pass by Chito Victorero.
12 points for Rafi Rivas. Lead is 7.
Waiting in the sidelines now. John Negros and Tommy De La Rosa.
Off the hands of Alcantara. 9 seconds on the clock. Negros is taking an awful lot of time to set up.
Tama yun, dahil magandang pressure na pinapakita dito ni Chito Victorero eh. Kaya nahihirapan mag-set up ang offense ng Negros Flashers.
There's a no-fear slam dunk from Rafi Rivas. Walang takot talaga.
And ngayon, 7 points down na lang. So, sensing trouble, John Periols and Romy De La Rosa are back in the game. So, back to the original starting lineup.
That will be called for traveling.
Yes, that's a good call. Nag-hop si John Gardel dun sa penetration niya ngayon. Let's see if they take advantage if they go to Rivas dahil to si Romy De La Rosa may height advantage si Rivas dito. Napakalaki.
Alcantara for 3. That was short. They battle for it. Alcantara with a foul against Alvin Teng. Nakita niya mas malaki. At umamit siya. A rare quality in a player.
May umamin din.
Look at the bench scoring number we have here. San Juan 30. Negros 19.
Correct. That has kept them in this game, yung bench scoring nila. From Rivas and from Capobres.
It's largely due to the vacuum left by Chris Calagio. De La Rosa for 3. It's off. Tang has it stolen. Rivas ahead of the back. He misses it. Alcantara with a putback.
Pinatukan ni Rivas yung sarili niya. Bago siya There's a double team on Manuelao.
Somebody's got to be open. Cardel against the stone wall. San Juan's just down by 5. De La Rosa.
And again, it's Victolero. He's everywhere, getting all these balls, grabbing long rebounds.
Better check to make sure there's only one of them. Fourth foul on De La Rosa, and Negros have a full penalty. They sense trouble. They call a timeout. The lead is 5. Alvin Teng nasa ilalim, walang nakakita. Velar drawing the defense. Alvin Teng scoop shot.
Good pass that time. Alvin Teng, Manuelao dropping it off. Alvin Teng inside.
87-80. Alcantara. Let it slip through his hands. That's traveling. And now let's go to Babian.
Alam mo, Bill, itong si Bonel Balingit, yung ika nga is living on borrowed time. Alam mo, Coach Cesar usually finishes the game with Rivas at center, tsaka Rodriguez at power forward. But Bonel is in the game right now dahil itong Negros ay hindi pa nagpa-press o hindi pa nagta-trap. Dahil pag nag-trap yan, Bonel becomes a liability. He cannot bring up the ball to help the press break. At bumibilis yung laro. So right now, Coach Cesar making the most of Bonel on the floor through defense and as a decoy. Bill Mark, back to you.
Yeah, that chess game between the two coaches is really amazing.
Tama yun, and if this lead doesn't go down with 3-4 minutes left in this game, talagang mapipilitan mag-full court tap dito si Philip Cesar. And if that happens, Bonel Balingit will have to sit down.
Alam mo, bitin na sila Rafi Ribis. May traveling, may offensive foul. Walang play. Balingit, snuffed by 2 defenders. It will stay with San Juan. Fresh shot clock, 5-19 in the game.
Every time Balingit gets the ball inside, tatlo lagi ang binibigay sa
Parang
defender.
rockstar eh.
Ang problema nila, hindi nila ma-open up ang spacing nila dahil Rodriguez and Rivas not good outside shooters.
Oo. At wala na si Calagio. Foul on Velar. And that'll be 2 free throws, it seems.
Two-shot foul here. 2 free throws for Randy Alcantara.
Si Randy Alcantara parang nasa-sandwich ko. Hindi ako palaman. You can feel the nervous energy in this gym.
Correct. Very important free throws here for Alcantara.
Lahat na lang naririnig mo. May nagdadasal, may bumubulong-bulong, may sumisigaw.
Sabay-sabay ang reaction sila. Kung tatahimik, bigla silang tatahimik lahat.
Tapos kung lagas na yung bubong dito sa USLS. Lead is 5. Victolero pressing Velar, slowing down the offense of Negros. Steal. Negros slaps it back. Foul on Victolero. And he acknowledges it.
That's a big play there by John Ferrios. 2 points na yun for San Juan. Great stop by John Ferrios. Counter steal. Ito yung last play natin. Oh. Ito, makagaw na ni Chito Victolero. Great reaction by John Ferrios.
Cardel finds himself open and scores.
He was hoping for a foul. He got Negros and Negros alone. He got 2 points.
Question to your mark, I'll put you on the spot. Is this combination working for San Juan?
Right now, hindi, especially if they want to put up points in a hurry. Kailangan siguro they have to go smaller.
Legal defense called on Negros.
This is an excellent defensive team for the San Juan Knights. Pero they need to put points on the board quickly. So they need someone who can shoot from the outside.
Ito na naman, technical naman. So again, another stoppage in the game.
But if you look at the bench of San Juan without Chris Calagio, ayan, ito si Newton. Si Newton na next option dito ni Coach Philip Cesar.
Alcantara missing from the line.
Yung difference ngayon this fourth quarter, medyo masama ang shooting percentage ng San Juan Knights, unlike the second quarter where they took advantage of the penalty situation. Philip Cesar growing even bigger with Newton playing the point guard.
Newton, a razzle-dazzle type slasher player.
Pero okay yan dahil to si Philip Newton can create his own shots. So pwede na puntahan yan. He's a player who can provide points in a hurry.
Fourth foul on Alvin Teng. And you will not get a charging foul in that semicircle under the basket called the no charge zone.
To si Robert Season, gusto silang matapos yung game na to. Parang napakatagal niyang 4 minutes and 26 seconds lang.
Rejected bench of San Juan and Philip Cesar.
Halos wala nang reaction si Coach Philip Cesar dito.
Newton gets one.
Still a long time.
Wala, out to dalawa sa open for triple.
Ay, traveling.
Nahuli siya ni Rivas.
Yung ibang player yun, tinilo ni Romy yun dahil hindi masasapal yun eh. Pero si Rafi Davis yung umabot sa kanya. Kaya malhaba ang wingspan nito.
Sabi nila, it's like trying to shoot over a telephone booth. Rivas dumps it over. Kalinic was not expecting it. He says, I'm sorry, I should have shot it.
Tama yun. Yun ang through experience matututunan ni Davis. Talagang very raw pa to si Rafi Davis, but he's an excellent talent, no question
Oh
about it.
yes, no question indeed. Here's Bobby Yang with more on San Juan.
Build to pull to kay Phil Newton just entered the ball game. Ang role niya dito ay bantayan ito si Maul at paghuri nito dahil in less than 2 minutes babalik si Chito Victorero at hindi mababantayan siguro ni Maul si Chito dahil pinagod na siya ni Phil Newton. So yan ang strategy ni Coach Philip Cesar. Mark, build up you.
And it's paying off because Newton is scoring here.
Dangerous pass and Willard starting to huff and puff. Lead is just 4 for Negros, 3 and 44.
And we have to consider here that Maui Willard is not 100% in this game. Meron pa siyang ilalabas sa last 3 minutes 44.
There's a fast break brought to you by FedEx. We live to deliver.
They have to go to Ferriols here. Ferriols has not touched the ball here in the fourth quarter.
Very good point. Fadel. Nothing but net. 25 points.
Si John Gandon made me look stupid that time. Hindi naman na kailangan ibigay kay John Gandon.
It happens a lot in this line of work. It happens a lot. Alcantara open for a triple. It's long. Newton tinukuran si De La Rosa. Alam mo, kita mo yung mga player parang tutumba na eh. All the nervous energy, the fatigue, the pounding.
Grabe, the length, the time it has taken for this game to finish. 1-on-1 situation for Romy De La Rosa.
Bonus situation now enforced against San Juan. Of course, Negros has been in double bonus for quite a long spell. 92-75 now.
Negros is trying to put distance between them and the San Juan Knights.
Rosa makes the adjustment. 93-85. Scoring has really tapered off.
After a very fast start,
Offensive foul on Newton. Stop this dribble too early.
Mortal Senior in the part of the point guard. If you still don't know what to do with the ball, never stop your dribble.
Alam mo siguro sabi ni Philip Cesar, if I could do it myself.
Pag naglaro niya si Philip, ubusin ang lahat dyan.
At one time, the best one-on-one player in the land. Del spins. Teng, Periols. Blocked by Rodriguez. Rivas gets it.
Rivas will pick up the 5th personal foul of John Periols.
We have a timeout.
Timeout, San Juan Knights.
Negros 93, San Juan 85. 1:45 to play. Still a lot of basketball ahead of us.
Need to
Try one.
Rivas with a follow-up, and the lead of Negros is 8, approaching the final 2 minutes.
John Cardell has done everything here in the fourth quarter. He's made some tough baskets and timely assist passes to his teammates.
And the final 2 minutes brought to you by FedEx. We live to deliver, and somebody squashing Johnny Del Cardell.
Napagandang ibon na balingit ko si John Cardell.
Aray.
But this is a tough player. John Cardell.
Cardell asking for some relief here. That was a 3-point shot brought to you by Islanders Sandals. May kapal ng orig, tibay ng orig. Ito, problema to para sa Negros pag hindi makabalik si Cardell.
Dito, dapat.
Aray! Right there. Ow!
That's all.
The Knights obviously upset about some debris being thrown here outside. But I've just been hit by a lighter.
Lighter ba yun?
Oh. So wait till we catch the perpetrator. And Robert Season addressing the crowd ng San Juan. Bisita natin yan dito.
Good gesture on the part of the Negros Slashers.
95-87, a minute 54 to go. It's been a draining game, and we'll take a short break.
Singapore. Islanders Sandals may kapal ng orig, tibay ng orig.
They call the held ball situation, and Slashers wound up with the ball. Pick and roll does not work. Alcantara winds up with it. And Cardell fouls him.
So 2 more foul shots here for Randy Alcantara.
And you know, this game is not over, man.
That's right. If Alcantara makes both take those 6 points a minute 36, pwede pa makahabol sa San Juan dito.
And in a gesture of gallantry, Dave Alvarez of the Negros Slashers sat on the bench of San Juan and is now there with some uniformed police officers to ensure the safety of the San Juan Knights.
Maganda yung gesture ni Dave Alvarez.
Rivas gets the offensive board, puts it back, it's short. And then, maraming sayang na pagkakataon din ito San Juan. And Negros will call a timeout. Things are getting a little scary. We'll be back for more NBA action. 95-88 is the score. It has been a prolonged agony for both teams.
Very exhausting game to, Bill. From the very beginning, talagang every play, tagal nang natin. Kaya hindi makakuha ng momentum itong San Juan Knights because of the many fouls that were committed by both teams.
Especially in this third quarter.
Tsaka every time that they were poised to make a comeback here in the fourth quarter, Negros had an answer for them.
Now the question for San Juan, do you force the momentum? Do you force a run?
The only way they can do that right now is to put up aggressive defense talaga, tsaka talagang full court pressure. That's their only hope right now, so that they can score points in bunches here itong last minute at 25 natin.
And look at this 5 on the floor for Philip Cesar, Bruce Dasha, Kalani Ferreira, Phil Newton, Chito Victolero, and Danica Pobres.
Tama yun na-recognize ni Coach Philip Cesar dito. He needs a lot of speed here if he is still entertaining thoughts of winning this game.
95-88, just a 7-point lead. Double team on Velar. Tapped away by Dasha. Ferriols winds up with it. He's bumped.
Talagang the breaks have not fallen the way of San Juan. Meron ng steal ng San Juan doon. Hindi na rin makuha yung bola, but still, John Ferriols recovered ball possession.
But you know, San Juan is sending a message to the rest of the league that they are a tough team that you have to fight every second if you're gonna beat them.
Tama yun, very, very versatile because they can go big, they can go small. Pwedeng tama-tama lang. Pwedeng talaga sobrang laki. Marami nilang pwede gawin sa lineup nila.
Kaya naman, ang bilis ng lineup nila. Ferriols.
But if you take a look at this 5, even if this is a quick 5, hindi naman sila masyadong maliit.
Hindi rin.
Malalaki na ang mga jogger nila.
Ferriols 1 out of 2. They have a timeout by San Juan. They are down by 8, a minute and 12 to go. Let's listen in on Philip Cesar.
Anayin nyo na kaagad. Paglamas ng bola, kung tayo maglalabas. Dito ha. Dito, back. Back lang, back. Back. Malalaki yan. Good, drive. Pag may pagkakataon solo, drive. Pagka hindi, bumuwesto kayo sa dito sa labas. Para kung matanggap dito, drive, kick out, tira. Ano, takbo na isang agad dito para wala sa. Hindi naman sila makakapag-press sa inyo. Bakit? Sabi, tayo. Maligid kayo, maligid kayo, malalaki sila. So, ganun lang, ayan lang, bale. Buha, pack. Pag pwede mo i-drive, kung sino to, drive. Tapos, open up. Pag hindi libre, kick out. Yan ang press. Tapos, pare, buha ng tao, isa. Ha? Buha ng tao. Pare,
Very basic for Philip Cesar.
Very clear instructions. Whoever gets the ball, penetrate. If they help on you, if they collapse, kick the ball outside, take the 3-point shot. And then after that, get your man, we go full court press. Yan ang kumbaga last dish stand dito ng San Juan Knights.
And they have to do it fast.
That's right.
Wednesday Warfare, the Pirates at the Gems, and the Eagles at the Dragons. Capobres lost the ball.
Hindi inaasahan ni Coach Philip Cesar yun. Because if you want somebody who will take his man off the dribble among the 5 players, si Capobres ang huling pipiliin mo dito sa San Juan Knights.
Brought to you by Revicon, Buhay ang Dugo, Buhay ang Lakas, a 30-second timeout. And what other options does Philip Cesar still have at this stage? It is Negros' ball.
Still very, very possible pero mahirap na dahil medyo bumaba na rin ang moral nitong San Juan Knights. But the only thing they can do right now is continue the full court pressure, try to force turnovers. If kung wala, then foul and hope that Negros misses.
Madaling sabi, hahaba pa yung laro.
Mahaba pa ang laro. Pero it has to be very frustrating for the Knights because ang dami nilang missed opportunities dito sa fourth quarter natin.
Mga free throw na sumala, mga layup, mga putback.
Oo. And it's a tribute to the resiliency na hindi sila bumibigay.
Oo. Tatawanan na yung mga player. Negros trouble with the inbound. Capobres almost swipes it. Cantel with the ball. They will use up the clock, that's for sure.
That's the story of the game, eh. Another near steal again by the San Juan Knights. But the Negros Flashers were able to recover the ball. Talagang puro missed opportunities ang nangyari dito sa San Juan. And you have to pinpoint the fact that Chris Calagio did not play practically the whole fourth quarter because of he fouled out with more than 10 minutes left.
You saw the contrasting images. Philip Cesar, deeply concerned, and Robert Season close to enjoying this game.
5th straight win for the Slashers in Negros under Robert Season. That has to feel good.
Foul is on Maui Galar. 56 seconds and spare change on the clock.
Para sa isang coach, talagang you have to feel good for Robert Season right now. Pero si Coach Philip Cesar, wala siyang kailangan ikahiya dito sa team niya because lumaban talaga sila. Especially, they did not get contributions from Monel Balingit and Chris Calagio. But still, they were here until the end. So, walang mahanap si Coach Philip Cesar dito sa mga players niya.
Dasha missing the first free throw, so it's the little things.
Now, San Juan has to forget about this game and look forward to the Final Four game next week against Pasig Rizal Pirates.
Yes.
So most of the nights wanted the Pirates, so they get their wish.
Sabi nga nila, be careful what you wish for.
Slashers will use the time. De La Rosa decides, why not? $97-89.
Ito, tapos na itong 30 seconds left, 10-point lead for the Slashers. They played an excellent fourth quarter itong Negros Slashers.
The last foul of Chito Victorero, the white flag for San Juan. 3-point shot brought to you by Islander Sandals. May kapal na orig, tibay ng orig.
Suki ng Islander si Ruben De La Rosa sa game natin.
And De La Rosa will be replaced by Madrid to provide extra ball handling. Alcantara replacing Victorero. But you know, when you think about it, San Juan really didn't have that much to lose in this game. Because they needed to win by 29 to be in first place.
Tama, if you consider just a crossover. But if you look at the bigger picture, sa interconference phase natin, they're now one game behind the Laguna Lakers.
Velar with a steal.
On the other hand, the Negros Slashers can be the number 1 team in the Southern Conference should Davao lose to Pampanga on Wednesday.
Davao, by the way, beating the Beijing Ducks last Friday. And so, let's make it official. The Negros Slashers defeat the San Juan Knights 101-89 in a tough, grinding, battering, exhausting game. Talagang exhausting for everyone concerned.
It was a matter of the San Juan Knights lacking the offensive firepower ng fourth quarter natin eh. They scored 52 points in the first half pero they couldn't keep up with the offense of the Slashers.
And first we'll go over to Bobby Yan with our best player, John Adel Cardel.
Okay, ang best player natin, John Cardel. John, alam mo, nakaka-5 wins na kayo under Coach Season. Dito sa Bacolod, talagang hindi masasabi, talagang tambay ginagawa ni Coach Season. Ano bang kagandahan sa system niya? Talagang nakaka-5-0 kayo dito sa Bacolod.
Teka, kasi alam mo, pag naglalaro kami dito, lahat ng tao talaga nahihiya kami kung makatalo kami dito dahil sa buong gym, lahat, nandito sila, kaya nakita namin, sinasabi namin bago kayo maglaro. Kailangan pa natin sila, pahiyain, nandiyan sila, manood sa atin, siksikan sila. Kailangan panalo na ito para sa kanila.
Okay, alam mo yung record nyo ngayon, 18-6. Pag natalo yung Davao, pareho kayo 18-6, pareho kayo number 1 sa South. Ngayon, sigurado dapat anyayaan mo yung mga Bacolod fans dahil magandang next conference, kailangan nyo yung supportan nila.
Yun, kaya naka-18 tayo ngayon, babawi tayo sa second conference sa Southern Conference. Kaya kailangan natin ito panalo ko. Sana nandun pa rin kayo. Kung ano yung mga narito sa gym, sana pumunta ulit kayo sa second conference. Huwag nyo kami pababayaan, hindi rin namin kayo pababayaan.
Okay, yun yung best player na, si John Cardel. Soon you over to Patricia.
Yes, thank you, Bobby. I have with me Coach Robert. Coach Robert, lahat ng home games ay naipanalo ninyo at kita-kita mo ang suporta sa iyo ng mga Negreste as the new coach of the Negros Slashers. Anong masasabi mo sa mga fans?
I'm very happy and I'm very thankful to all the Ilonggos who supported us all dito sa 5 games namin, and I'm very glad. And I should give credit to the players for playing their hearts out, and I did little coaching lang out there. Talagang it's the players, really, it's the determination, the will of the players that carried us.
Thank you, Coach, and congratulations. Back to you guys.
All right, and now there were a lot of highlights in this game. That's clear. And now let's check out our winning break.
Itong winning break natin was the pass of John Cardel. Nung umahabol ang San Juan Knights, back-breaking 3-point shot here. from Romy De La Rosa of an assist pass from John Cardell, who took over the fourth quarter. John Ferrios, wala nung fourth quarter, but he was there the whole game. Magka third quarter, pagdating natin sa fourth quarter, John Cardell took over.
All right, and let's check out our top four and show you really the performances and the results of all the hard work that these teams have been putting in. Look at this lineup of players.
And as you see, Ferrios and Cardell leading the way, 22 points and 27 points. De La Rosa, 21 points. Dito naman sa San Juan Knights natin, 16 points from Alcantara, 14 from Rodriguez, Levis 14. But two players missing, Bonel Balingit and Chris Calagio did not score in double figures.
And now the updated team standings.
So ngayon ang solo leadership natin ngayon, Laguna Lakers 12-2, 11-3. San Juan will drop to 11-3 and they will play the Pasig Rizal Pirates in our Final Four. Then Laguna will play the winner of that game on Wednesday, Davao versus Pampanga.
That's just the second game of our doubleheader on Wednesday Warfare. We will have Pasig Rizal at Cebu. That'll be handled by Bob Navales, Butch Maniego, Ira Panganiban, and Angela Kalina. And Davao versus Pampanga at Pampanga, Seb Sarmenta, Danny Francisco, Ria Tanwacto, and Lexi Schultz. And we'd like to thank once again Bon Cafe Premium, imported coffee with a smooth taste and great aroma, La Preferida. Authentic Mexican snacks and salsa at a great price. And as always, parting shot partner.
Yun lang, I'm looking forward to that game between Davao and Pampanga. Big game. That will go down the wire to decide that fourth slot natin.
Alright, so on behalf of Mark Molina, it's been a pleasure, partner. And of course, Bobby Yan and Patricia Heslet, I'm Bill Velasco. This is your league. You made it happen. This is your NBA. See you.
Here we go. Let's get loud. Let's get loud. Turn the music up. Let's do it. Come on, people. Let's get loud. Let's get loud. Turn the music up to hear that sound. Let's get loud. Let's get loud.
NBA Wednesday Warfare. Magtutunggali ang Pasig Rizal at Cebu, live mula sa New Cebu City Coliseum. Ang mga Davaoeños at Pampangueños nagdarasal at nananabik dahil siguradong patayan ang labanan para sa huling playoff spot sa Magic 4 ng NBA Crossover Cup.
Estong with a strong goal! Felix Delano, Santos for the win! And goal!
Huwag palalampasin sa June 7 alas 6:30 ng gabi sa Studio 23. Live sa Brengiao Convention Center, San Fernando, Pampanga. NBA!
Initiate